How's it going, everybody? Hope you're all having a wonderful day. Thank you for tuning in to another live stream here on The Dive. If you are new, if this is your first time tuning in, welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jackson. I do daily streams here, almost daily streams here, 7 days a week, pretty much. We are going to be having an incredible conversation today with some really great friends of the show, people who I've known for a minute and a half, who've been not just individuals who are supportive of the causes that we talk about on this show, but who are actually putting their money, time, energy, resources where their mouths are and getting out in the streets and fighting for all this stuff. And people who the opinions of I really respect and admire and appreciate. So I'm looking forward to the conversation today, everything we're going to talk about. We've kind of been going, the three of us have been kind of going back and forth on DMs and hitting a bunch of stuff that we think we should be talking about in this stream. We have a lot of different stories we want to talk about, some of which include the 215 indigenous children that were found in a mass grave in a what they deem as a residential school in Canada. Some of the stuff surrounding the Netanyahu transition of power in Israel currently that's taking place and what we can expect from the new administration. The 1 year anniversary of the lynching of George Floyd and where we've gotten in that 1 year and the 12 months since that took place. So we got a ton of stuff, and that just scratches the surface of the stuff that we're going to be talking about. We got a ton of stuff we're going to be discussing today. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Be sure to drop a like on this stream because it does help us boost in the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe, hit that bell notification. If you're looking for information and where to follow our guests today, I have it all attached in the link in the description below, so you can find Joe's website, Twitter, Instagram, Collin's YouTube page, Joe's YouTube page, all of their social medias. You can find them there, follow them there. And it looks like we already got a ton of people in the chat. How's it going, everybody? We got Brendan, you got to respond to my calls. I called you like 30 minutes ago and you didn't pick up. And now you're tuning into the stream. At least you're tuning into the stream, right? Miguel, Holly, Dirtbag Leftist, JC, Lawrence, hope you're all having a great day. RLA, Dizzy, thank you all for tuning in. So without further ado, I want to bring in our guest today. And also, wait, last thing here. If you want to share this stream with your friends, family, colleagues, whoever, be sure to do that right now because this is going to be a great conversation. And I think a lot of people would appreciate hearing what these two lads have to say. So without further ado, I want to bring in our guests today. None other than first I'll bring in Collin, Radix-Carter, and DJ Joe Nice. How you guys doing? Thank you for joining me today.
What's good? What's going on?
Not much.
Gentlemen, good afternoon, good evening. I know it's evening where you are, Collin, afternoon where you are, Jackson, because
yes,
West Coast, East Coast thing. It's not going to be a Biggie and Tupac type situation today because we're all connected on the same page. Yeah, exactly. And in your instance, California love. You see what I did there, sir? You see what I did?
Yeah, California love. Hey, also before we get started here, Joe, thank you so much for this shirt. This is like part of your new line. This shit,
yes, sir.
Fire, absolutely fire. I threw it on for the first time right before we went live, and I was like, "This shit fits nice. This shit fits nice. I'm gonna wear this out tonight."
That's it. Hey, look. If things happen because you wear that shirt, you can thank me later.
Hey, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't need a shirt to make things happen, but yeah, I'm sure it's gonna boost my odds.
Hey, look, a little bit of luck never hurt anybody, brother.
No. And who can deny me in this shirt? I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome. Thank you.
Of course. So I just wanted to get a brief note about that. All right. I decided to start this clothing line because there's a lot of stuff out here that we want to make sure that the message continues to get sent out there. So what you've got is a shirt that says in Arabic, humanity, freedom, equality, and survival. Just like, of course, my shirt says also. Okay, Collin had his, but the United States Postal Service, because of funding issues and everything else, Louis DeJoy is still the Postmaster General. They might have messed up the mail in Washington, D.C., but Collin, yours it should be there, but who knows what happened. But In any
Who knows?
event, there's a lot of stuff on the website. Get yourself hooked up. JoeNiceDJ.net. It's clothing with a conscience. It's merchandise with a message. I'm going to say that again. It's clothing with a conscience. It's merchandise with a message. And part of the reason why I wanted to do humanity, freedom, equality, and survival, the 4 fights, is because these are 4 fights that we're all dealing with right now in this sort of existential crisis. We're dealing with it, okay? And people in other countries that are non-English speakers are also dealing with it. Take a look at the situation in Palestine. They're dealing with humanity, freedom, equality, and survival. I have this in Spanish. Take a look at the situation in Colombia. Take a look at the situation in Peru. I have it in Mandarin Chinese. Take a look at the situation in Hong Kong and in China with the Uyghurs. I have it in Russian. So, and I have it in French. Obviously, in French, take a look at the Gilets jaunes and the Gilets noirs and the colonization of Africa by France. So I have it in 6 major languages, the United Nations languages. It's there for you. Again, if you want to look right and if you want to look sharp and if you want to have merchandise that not only is ethically made, but has a message.
And it fits well.
And
it
fits well.
It's like a fucking glove. I threw it again. I'm not trying to just sell this shit. I threw it on and I'm like, this, maybe it was because I just got out of the gym and, you know, I'm feeling pumped, but like I threw it on and I'm like, okay.
So, look, man, look, you know, the nicely threaded cotton and 300 grams of protein in the gym. Look, man, it does wonders for the way a shirt will fit you, my man. I'm telling you.
It does. It does. And Collin, you've got a brand new project right now that we talked a little bit about and we are going to talk more about. But while, you know, we just threw up DJ Joe's website, I want to share this as well. Your new YouTube channel that has yet to, you're going to be uploading content soon. But I want to share this with everyone right now. If you want to say a few words about this, and we'll dive more into as we get into the, you know, topics of today that are going to be related to this. But I'll throw this up on the screen for everyone. If you want to say a few words for this, and I'll link it in the chat so everyone can subscribe. Be sure to do that.
Yeah. So my YouTube channel is Kamano Mukano. So basically, it's Lugandan phrase meaning "come back, dear one," or "come back, beloved." So basically, the idea of my YouTube channel is to uplift African voices that we do not necessarily hear about because, you know, we talk about everywhere else in the world and even Latin America, you know, not for the right reasons, but we never talk about Africa at all. It often gets neglected. And many of you know, I visited Africa several times over the last decade, and I've developed great relationships with people there who I consider second family. And the more times I've gone, the more I've just really learned a lot and really discovered more of myself just as far as my identity as a Black person, but just seeing how privileged I am, you know, just in being in this country, and obviously just how racism kind of blinds us to the privilege that, you know, we do see here. And so this is really just my way to kind of connect voices that that never get heard of. But at the same time, the reality is that me going over there is almost kind of like a novelty, which it really shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. So the idea of going to East Africa, you know, is definitely something that I would love everybody to experience if you ever have the opportunity to. But it's a way for them to kind of see more representation besides me, just seeing our culture over here in the West. So it's just a way to kind of connect in terms of topics I care about in regards to education, politics, culture, and just kind of seeing where it develops from there.
Awesome. I'm so excited for it. I'm really looking forward to it. So we'll everyone be sure to subscribe. I'll link it one more time for everyone. And again, all the links for both Collin and DJ Joe Nice are in the description below. Yep. But be sure to go subscribe. Looks like some people are already doing that. And yeah, so I think a good point to start this discussion on would be revisiting how we all first met. And it was just, honestly, it was pretty random. Like it was we hit it off when we first met. It was in DC at the Force the Vote protests. And I mean, Collin, we met a little bit before DJ Joe, but you know, you allowed me to stay at your place in DC. and you'd been both like watching my streams and members of our community. But then we all met at the Force the Vote protests. And DJ Joe, you had a sign that caught both of our eyes, and we all started talking about it. So, yeah, I mean, like, just for everyone who's not aware, talk a little bit about that sign and like the initial discussion we all first had, because that's what caught my eye and sparked the discussion that we initially had.
Yeah, well, it's the same sign that I've been using all over last summer in every protest that I attended, because I've always been of the mindset and opinion that it's not just enough to march in the streets and just chant stuff. Okay, there needs to be something that people can read, then you can take with you, and it's like, oh, you know what? Yeah, we should be fighting for reparations for American descendants of enslaved Africans. Oh, but you know what? Before we even do that, we really need to rewrite the Constitution. And that's something that I certainly think needs to be done. Medicare for all, student loan forgiveness, legalizing marijuana, defunding the police and the Pentagon, a demilitarized Green New Deal, ranked choice voting, and all of these different progressive policy points were on my sign. And then you looked at it and you're like, whoa, dude, that's I like that, man. I like that. I like that. Then I started talking about the healthcare stuff in Section 1881A of the Social Security Act.
Yep.
And Collin was like, whoa, really? This is real? We can do this? And then the three of us just got to chopping it up, and somebody brought some really good bread there that morning, and we were just munching on that.
Yeah. God, I forgot about that.
No, I didn't forget about that, because that sourdough was serious, my man. That was some serious sourdough.
Yeah, that was so nice.
Proper sourdough. So yeah, man, we were all just munching on bread and just talking, and then it was like, hey, look, let's exchange information. Next thing you know, here we are 7 months later, 6.5 months later. Actually, no, 6 months to the day, because it was January 4th. And here it is, June 4th.
Yeah, you're right. 6 months in a day. And what? Almost 30,000 Americans have died in that amount of time due to a lack of access to basic health insurance. And the amount of time in which they could have potentially forced a vote on Medicare for all, that's how many Americans have died due to the lack of that policy.
Exactly. And the crazy part is where we were was literally a half a block away, and then 2 days later, the insurrection at Washington, D.C. took place. That's exactly. We were literally a half a block away. And and every time that I see video footage of that insurrection, I never forget telling people that, look, I was there 2 days ago, and there were maybe 35 or 40 of us standing on the back steps of one of the buildings of the House of Representatives. And here we are getting threatened by about 15 or 20 cops.
They had like the rifles out on us. We were completely surrounded. Like they didn't start like threatening to arrest. Like they didn't start putting out their warnings until they had like 2 cops for every person. And they did have to wait a while, but they had so many cops for us. It was just a small group. It shows how threatening a group of actual, I don't want to say leftists, because we weren't all leftists, but people who are just advocating for like robust social welfare programs, is how threatening that is to the establishment.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, Collin, what do you remember from that morning? Because that was looking back, it was such a special time. Like, it really was a moment in which I feel like as we move through the months, there's like continued divisions that's kind of are rising up on the left. You know, like I feel like Bernie was a unifying force for a lot of people. And then like Force the Vote kind of, showed that a lot of the people who were supportive of Bernie really weren't dedicated to the cause. And now that since then, even there's been like more divisions on the left, but there was so much unity at that protest. What do you remember from that morning?
I just remember, because I started watching you probably about a month before. And so and I think that whole summer, especially in light of the George Floyd protests, which I participated in DC, I was just kind of waiting, just as far as we need to get on the streets. We need to really demonstrate how pissed off we are, just as far as the state of affairs in this country and in the policies that our leaders are initiating or not that would benefit us. And I just remember you saying, just in regards to Force the Vote, when that started to really kind of bowl over, just you were the one who was like, I want to go. I want to go and protest. And I remember watching you that night, and I was like, yes, like finally someone is actually taking direct action, in light of this. And that was kind of what, inspired me to be like, if you need to come to DC, I want you here. Like, I'll be willing to keep you here in my apartment, whatever, just get here, And so fortunately, you took me up on it. And then, and I think just obviously meeting Joe, during the protests, I think for me that day, there's a lot of stuff that happened, has happened since, and a lot of stuff that happened before. But I think that was definitely one of the few times, I think, especially in the year so far, that where we really felt that solidarity, as far as we're all coming together. We all had different views on things, but we're coming together to demand Medicare for all.
Mhm.
And I think just in light of that, I think last year was a hard year for all of us in some ways. But I think especially it was at the beginning of the new year, it just felt like a new beginning, just as far as we're working towards something. And I think that's definitely an energy that I'm wanting to carry, and especially in light of my channel that I am going to start soon. Just the idea of like, and I remember saying this to you, Jackson, like when you were here, just the idea of like, I shouldn't be afraid to do something that I care about. And I think that's something that is trying to help others, or benefit others in some way. You shouldn't be afraid to stand out in that kind of faith. And I think for me, doing this channel is representative of that, because I am scared as hell to do this, because I look at you guys and I consider you experts in your fields, and I'm like, I'm just a pre-K teacher, like, and yeah, I've been to Africa several times, but there's still a lot that I still don't know. But I realize it's not about what I know, but I think it's the idea for me is what I'm willing to learn. And so I want to use my channel as a way to develop and learn and grow more in an area of the country, in the area of the world that I really love, I care about, and the people that I care about, and I want others to care for it too. And so I think just overall, just coming back to, when we were together, it just felt good as far as we were all working towards something that day. I mean, obviously, we know the result of that, but I think, at the end of the day, like, as you said, I know who is with me in fighting for things that I care about and who are not. And those are the people who are for me, come along. And those who, are not, gotta move on.
It's really interesting to look back at that moment and kind of try and think about the fact that there were a lot of people, I mean, myself included, who thought that the progressives might actually, inflict damage upon the establishment to try and fight for the American people. And in the months since then, we've just seen, the continued utter failure of them to actually push for any real substantive policy changes when it comes to a $15 minimum wage, or when it comes to student loan debt cancellation, or when it comes to an infrastructure deal, like a massive infrastructure deal, or when it comes to withholding military aid to Israel, or canceling military aid to Israel. Like, all of these policies, they've just been an utter failure. I don't know. I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on like whether or not you think more and more people are waking up to this, and the fact that they are like failing us, because I think some people just don't want to admit how fucked the situation is. And it comes out of a place of them just like not being able to wrap their heads around the situation we're in, given how terrible things are going. Like it's things could be worse without a doubt, but like it's not getting any better right now. We just saw this week that the U.S. is likely to provide an additional $1 billion in military assistance to Israel after what just took place in Gaza and the West Bank and Sheikh Jarrah, all of occupied Palestine. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Because what I see is kind of like, I feel like people are very set in their ways at this point, now where we're at after Israel and Palestine. And I feel like you've drawn your lines now, and you're either, an apologist for this machine, or you're actively calling it out.
Collin, you go first, brother. You're on fire. Keep going.
Yeah. I I said it on Twitter, and I'll say it again, and this might be controversial, but I don't care. But this is in a way why I'd rather have Trump. And I said that because, and I said that because people were like, and we know certain commentators who said this, who would you rather fight? I would rather fight Trump because at least I have the option to do so if I wanted to. And I think in the light, and again, especially in light the last 4 years, people generally hated him. So if this was reversed, if Trump was doing the things that Biden was doing right now, everyone would be in the street right now. But the fact that because it's Biden, you know, we're kind of quiet right now. And so for me, it's like, I'm not surprised because I think people just want an excuse to go back to sleep. And basically that's kind of where we're at right now. So it's like, I'm not surprised at all. I think for me, it's just more frustrating for me because people were like, and were giving me crap as far as, oh, you need to vote for Joe Biden, you know, and then once we get him in, we'll push him left, pushing that narrative. And now, right now, as he hasn't offered us Medicare for all. He hasn't offered us student loan forgiveness. He hasn't, you can fill in the list of what he hasn't done currently as of now. So I think for me, it's just like, it's an excuse not to stop fighting, no. But I feel like it was easier under Trump to rally against him. Whereas now it's like, okay, Biden's in office, the Democrats are in office. So, you know, they got their best interests at heart and they're trying their best they can when they really are fucking us over probably in worse ways than Republicans have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Collin, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I've been saying this for a while now. The Republicans are honestly dishonest. The Democrats are dishonestly dishonest. And for that reason alone, I agree with you. I would have almost preferred Trump to be president because at this point, there's an obvious evil that is in the White House. There's an obvious villain. There is the Lex Luthor that's sitting behind that chair. You see what I'm saying? As opposed to use a comic book, Magneto, where you knew he was kind of evil, but not really evil, but deep down he was looking to fuck you up. It's that sort of situation. Realistically, I went on an 11-minute rant when I was in the Elizabeth City, North Carolina protests about a month ago on another network, and I went over a laundry list of all the shenanigans of Joe Biden, and not to belabor them, but he wrote the crime bill, he wrote the crack bill, he wrote the bill that eventually led to the Patriot Act, he wrote the civil asset forfeiture law of 1984. He wrote the Rave Act, supported every single war that's ever been in existence. He eulogized Strom Thurmond. Strom Thurmond in 1956 was the presidential candidate for the Dixiecrat Party, a party that supported segregation in the United States. And if you don't believe me, please look that up. It's there. Supported the repeal of Glass-Steagall, which deregulated the banks and did all sorts of craziness. So he helped write NAFTA. So realistically, I think people fell back to sleep because it was, oh, hey, it's Uncle Joe. Hey, it's Amtrak Joe. Hey, he's a grandpa. Hey, he has a dog, right? But really, if you look at what Trump has done in 4 years and what Biden has done in almost 50, I'm not sure how anybody could take a look at this and say that Joe Biden is going to be a better alternative than Donald Trump. And if you look at the cabinet members that Joe Biden put into office, as opposed to the people that Donald Trump had a bunch of wealthy people that had no idea how government works. Joe Biden has a bunch of people now that know how to truly fuck up America. They know how to do it. Trump's cabinet was full of wealthy people that donated to the people who are in Biden's cabinet now. There's a huge difference between that when you look at the scale of wealth from a Lloyd Austin, who might be worth about $20 million, to somebody like a Stephen Mnuchin, who should be in jail right now, who's worth probably close to $500 million, and his father and he both worked at Goldman Sachs. So when you think about it in that perspective, there's the level of mischievousness that is in the White House now far exceeds anything that Trump could have done, because Trump was a jackass that didn't know how government worked, and he was totally impatient. Joe Biden has patience, and he has people that know how to screw up America badly on all levels. Avril Haines, Lloyd Austin.
They've done it before.
They've done it before.
They'll do it again.
Grant. What's the lady? What's the former governor of Rhode Island? Gina Raimondo. Oh my gosh! I mean, just the cast of characters he has in office. Neera Tanden. Come on. Tony Blinken. Janet Yellen.
Yeah, we all knew it was going to be bad, but like it's way worse than I think any of us had imagined. And the worst part about it all is that as we all predicted, right? You know, they put this like smiling you know, facade of progressiveness like over the war crimes. So, like you see it quite literally with like the what was it, they have like the army ads that are all like woke army ads, and they have the woke CIA ads or whatever, you know, like those things are, it's just it's the epitome of what the Biden administration is. And you know, just one of the things that you know, Joe, you sent in our group chat before we were going live here of something we should talk about was the centennial of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, the bombing of it. You know, this honestly is something that I didn't learn about in high school. It wasn't mentioned once in middle school. You know, we never learn about this stuff. So this is the type of stuff that people like Joe Biden will talk about. They'll be like, you know, maybe we condemn the actions of our forefathers who did this stuff. You see, another thing that you brought up in our group chat was surrounding the fact that Macron is, you know, apologizing for France's role in the 1994 Rwandan genocide. But like, you'll never see these people ever give out reparations, right? No. You'll never see them give reparations for the people in their own countries that they have wronged and you know, literally killed, massacred. You'll never see them give out reparations for, you know, people in other countries that they have played a role in destabilizing, you know, committing regime change, launching coups, committing massacres, genocide, like all this stuff. Talk a little bit about that, because some people maybe in chat don't know about what happened in Tulsa. Again, because we have been taught not to look into this stuff, and we have been, you know, systematically like they erased of any knowledge of this stuff from happening.
Yep. Collin, go for it, brother. Unless you want me to talk about it.
I've spoken up, so you go first, and then I'll fill in.
All right.
Because I have a connection that I'm sure you're going to make. So I want to make that connection.
Yeah, no worries. I think, okay, everybody understands that this past Monday was the centennial of the Black Wall Street Massacre. It is one of the most hideous acts of domestic terrorism ever. And Black Wall Street is in the Greenwood section of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, for all of the R&B fans out here, okay, there's a band called the Gap Band, okay? GAP stands for Greenwood, Archer, and Pine. Greenwood, Archer, and Pine are three streets that are in the historic Greenwood neighborhood of Tulsa, Oklahoma. So just want to put that out there. So this whole situation took place when a 19-year-old man named Dick Rowland was falsely accused of assaulting a lady named, what was her name? I think her name was Sarah Page, and it was in the Drexel building. A bunch of really angry white folks was like, oh, we want to lynch this guy. 75 black people with guns came down and were like, no, we're not lynching this guy. Somebody fired a shot. Next thing you know, all hell broke loose. And at that point, I think it was 12 people died initially. 10 were white, 2 were black. So at this point, white folks in Tulsa, Oklahoma got really mad. They're like, no, we're not having this. We can't have all these black people with guns. And we want to make sure that this guy who was falsely accused for assaulting this woman gets his punishment. So the people in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the white folks who were upset, they went ahead and they attacked this 35 square block area of Black Wall Street, 35 square blocks. They had a ground attack. They also hired private airplanes to drop bombs and other incendiary devices on the buildings in the area. Okay, now 10,000 were left homeless. Something like 1,200 homes were destroyed. Now, I think there were about 800 people that were reported dead, but we're never going to know how many people were actually dead because there were mass graves built around across Tulsa, Oklahoma. And anybody who died in the massive amounts of fires that were in Black Wall Street, they just tossed many of those bodies in the Arkansas River. So there's no way to know how many people actually died on May 31 and into June 1. In addition, the racist white mob that attacked all of these businesses also had help from the Ku Klux Klan and, as I like to say, the Blue Klux Klan, otherwise known as the Tulsa Police. Think about that. The Tulsa Police went ahead and supported angry white racist white folks bombing businesses out into oblivion, bombing them. That's what happened. Now, Black Wall Street happened because many of the people who were in the South wanted to get away from the Jim Crow South. There was a large oil industry in Tulsa, Oklahoma, even though Black people weren't allowed to work in the oil industry there. They were working for mostly wealthy white folks that owned the oil infrastructure in that town. The Greenwood section, it had the four institutions that every thriving community should have. Four. It had grocery stores, it had hospitals, it had banks, and it had schools. It also had pharmacies, it also had hotels. Another reason why Black Wall Street was able to thrive is because there's plenty of land. It's Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's Oklahoma. It's a middle of nowhere. It's quite honestly the middle. So there's plenty of place to work. And many people moved to Oklahoma before it became a state in 1907 when it was a territory. So many of the federal laws that were enacted, the Jim Crow laws, didn't apply there because it wasn't a state. So federal law couldn't apply to anywhere that was an actual territory. Now, some of the aftermath that happened with the Black Wall Street situation is there was one building that survived, and it was a high school. And the high school was eventually taken over by the Red Cross to administer medical care for everybody that was involved in the incident. Many of the people there did not have a place to rebuild because shortly after the entire area was destroyed, the city of Tulsa passed an ordinance stating that only people could use brick to rebuild in that area. Now, brick was cost prohibitive, and many of the Black folks who had businesses in that area had their capital wrapped up in their business, and their businesses were gone. And most insurance policies aren't going to cover a loss as a result of civil unrest or riots. You're seeing that happening now with many of the buildings that were damaged as a result of Black Lives Matter and many of these protests. Civil unrest, riots, never covered under the insurance policies. So this situation where they put in this brick ordinance isn't necessarily, it's not out and out redlining per se, but it essentially and effectively prevented Black people from rebuilding in that area. And let's not forget redlining. And there's a wonderful book you can read about this by Richard Rothstein. The name of the book is called The Color of Law. Redlining began in my beloved hometown of Baltimore, Maryland on December 17th, 1910. It was called a racial covenant where Black people could only live around Black people. White folks could live around white folks. Black people had devalued houses. White people had exponentially increased values in their homes. So Black Wall Street, none of the people that participated in the incident that bombed Black people and killed Black people into oblivion, none of them were prosecuted at all. So it's something that I think needs to be taught in schools, and it's not something that I think needs to be taught in high school or grade school. This needs to be elementary school, and it needs to not just be a Black History Month thing. This is part of American history. This is part of American history. And I think the more that people understand that these sorts of incidents have taken place, the better off we are going to be able to move forward as a country, because we can't not tell these stories and tell the history, because this happened in the United States. This is part of the United States history. This has happened on United States soil. This is a real situation. And I don't use this term lightly, but I'm going to use it because I think it's applicable. This was, for all intents and purposes, a Holocaust. That's really what it was. And if our Jewish brothers and sisters can consistently remind us of what happened with their Holocaust, then I think it's perfectly appropriate for Native American descendants of enslaved Africans and Black people in the United States to remind our white brothers and sisters and everybody else about the atrocities that have happened to Black people in the United States.
Yeah, well said. I think I put it up on the screen a minute ago, but I don't know if you saw it, Joe. Lex Eimer says, my respect and admiration for DJ Joe and his knowledge, commitment, courage, integrity, and wit have been steadily growing since I saw his interview at Status Quo. Terrific, man.
Thank you,
I
brother.
second
Appreciate that.
I second that.
Thank you.
That was an incredible summary. And again, like I don't blame people for not knowing about what took place at Black Wall Street, because it has been erased from history. It has been entirely erased from history. Like there's a reason why they don't teach us this stuff. There's a reason why they don't teach us about the rich labor history and left history and communist history in the United States. There's a reason why they don't teach us this stuff, and it's pretty clear as to why.
Yep.
Collin,
there's more than one Black Wall Street, by the way. There's more than one Black Wall Street. There's a Black Wall Street in Durham, North Carolina. It's on Parish Street, where they had the Merchants and Farmers Bank and the insurance company right there. And there's a big old plaque right there in Durham, North Carolina. There's a Black Wall Street there. There's other Black Wall Streets around the United States. Harlem, New York was a major site of Black wealth. The largest concentration of Black wealth now in the United States is Prince George's County, Maryland, just outside Washington, D.C. And the reason for that is because a lot of people that live in that area bought homes when they weren't expensive, and they all had really good government jobs. So if you're married and let's say you got married back in 1979 or 1980, you end up working for the Census Bureau or one of these other government agencies, and you get a really good government job. And then your husband and wife make a little bit of money together. You got a household income of 80 or 90 grand a year. You end up buying a house for $35,000 or $40,000 a year in district type Capitol Heights or Rockville or wherever.
I can't even imagine.
And all of a sudden now that house is now worth $400,000. And the husband and wife that started out low, entry level, are now GS-13s and GS-15s in the federal government, making $95,000 a year. You're going to get a large concentration of Black wealth in that area. Montgomery County has a large concentration of Black wealth also. So
but now also, and sorry to interrupt, but even though we have that, and we have that in many places across the country, what we're seeing now, and Collin, when you and I were getting we got I think like a lift the morning of Force the Vote, the first morning of Force the Vote after we got bagels. Like you can go block to block and see how cities, like these major cities, are pushing out Black people from their own communities, and that's gentrification, plain and simple. And it's like that is happening all across the country as well. So I mean, the war is still going on. The war is very much still going on. As you point out, it's a very real issue. So Collin, I know you had some things that you wanted to say about everything that happened in Tulsa as well.
Well, actually, not really, but I do want to make a connection to, and thank you, Joe, for bringing this up, because I actually didn't know about this, but you mentioned how Macron basically went to Rwanda last week to give somewhat of an apology for France's role in the Rwandan genocide. So those of you who don't know, just to give a very brief history. So the Rwandan genocide took place in 1994 between the Hutsis and Hutu tribes. Basically what happened, Hutus and Tutsis. The Tutsis were more of the elite. The Hutus were more of the farmers. So they're two tribes very similar to each other, and everything basically in Africa goes by tribes. They don't go by race. So while, there would be tension, but they were able to live somewhat copacetic. Mm-hmm. The Europeans came in and exacerbated those relationships as far as they see the Tutsis, who they claimed were more European looking as far as stature, intelligence, money. So they sided with the Tutsis, which obviously the Hutus were not having that. And eventually it ended up with civil war between the two tribes, which ended up close to 1 million Rwandans died over a course of 100 days.
Jesus.
Yeah, so, but I'm saying that because while there was tensions among those tribes to begin with, the Europeans, the French, the Belgians came in and exacerbated those tensions. And as far as what was initially about, tribal issues, they kind of made it more about race and class. So Macron comes in and basically it's like, we acknowledge our role in the genocide, short of saying sorry. And President Kagame, president of Rwanda, I think for more or less accepted the apology. Now, to me, and I don't want to disrespect, because I know I have a few Rwandans who are probably watching or watching after this. So I want to be respectful to them. And obviously, because Kagame has done a lot of good in the country, I will say that. But I actually asked a couple of my friends in Rwanda before we went on live today, is there anything that you want me to say that you want people to know? And in light of Macron's comments. And basically they said, shout out to Ronnie and Peter in Kigali. Basically they said forgiveness and the idea of moving on, and pressing forward. But then the idea of, we don't want handouts, meaning, like, I think when we think of Africa, and especially we've all seen the commercials like Save the Children, whatever. We've seen the kids with the distended bellies and all that. We see a lot of poverty, and people are like, please give whatever to help these poor children in Africa. And one of the things that my friend Ronnie has talked about is the idea of economic empowerment. That's what the country is looking for right now.
Mm-hmm.
Sound familiar? Fred Haven Leftists, shout out to them. And they talk about reparations all the time on the show. So if you don't know who they are, go check them out. But they essentially talk about reparations. And I actually want to say this to Black people especially, because I think we get it twisted. And I think a lot of this is kind of like a right-wing talking point as far as reparations equals a check. We don't want a check. We can easily get a check. We want economic empowerment, meaning we want to have the ability to do things not just for ourselves comfortably, but the ability to help others with the wealth that we're able to gain, which kind of relates to the massacre in Tulsa. They got rid of that, because white people were like, oh no, Black people cannot do better than us, so we got to shut this down, and that's the same thing that's happening in Africa as well. They can't have Africans be better than Europeans or anyone in the West, so they're going in and exploiting their resources and leaving Africans high and dry. And basically what my friend Ronnie said is, which again kind of relates to reparations, it's not about the idea of just paying Black people, but the idea of giving us economic resources that we're able to fend for ourselves and we're able to fend for our families and our communities better, which is a lot bigger than just giving us money, So I think, and Joe and I have had this conversation before when we talk about reparations. My frustration with reparations is that we think very limited in scale as far as reparations is just a thing that happens in America. Now, Joe and I, we weren't born in this country. So if we were to kind of just talk about reparations, especially as it applies to African Americans, doesn't necessarily apply to us.
Exactly.
Because we're both immigrants.
Correct.
But if you're talking in the cause of like globally within the African diaspora, which if you can see in Africa, if you can see in Europe, if you can see in the Caribbean, if you see in the US, then that's a lot bigger discussion. Because at the end of the day, Americans did not enslave my ancestors. The British did.
Correct.
The French did. So if we're going to talk about US giving us reparations, UK, we need you in the conversation. France, we need you in the conversation. Spain, Portugal, we need you in the conversation. West Africa, we need you in the conversation too. So this is a bigger discussion versus just thinking in terms of what African Americans need. This is something that all Black people within the diaspora need. And so the idea that, again, Macron and in a way Biden, just kind of giving us lip service as far as, oh, we understand, we acknowledge, and kind of going the idea of forgiveness. Yeah, you can say it, but actions speak louder than words, man.
Yeah.
Where is the action behind your words? Like,
Yes.
what influence are you going to do as far as helping us get that empowerment? And kind of going back to force the vote and Medicare for all. See how I'm bringing everything back? And I think, again, this is why I want to focus on my channel, because a lot of Black people, especially here, kind of think of, oh, Africans are just doing their own thing. Then they're different than us. It's really not. The same issues that they're dealing with here, there are the same issues that we're dealing with here. If we're talking about Medicare for all, and especially with the Fred Hampton leftist saying that's a pro-Black policy. If I didn't have to worry about health insurance, I can start my own business. Jackson, I know you're 21 right now. And I know right now you're under your parents' insurance, but I know a concern of yours is when you do get to 26, and assuming that you continue doing this YouTube thing, what are you going to do?
Exactly.
You have to figure out insurance for yourself. So, so the idea of like Medicare for all, just kind of coming back to that, is very much a very much Black thing. And that's a very small piece as far as what reparations represents. So whether you're talking about Tulsa, whether you're talking about the Rwandan genocide, whether you're talking about slavery in general, it's all connected, in regards to the African diaspora as a whole. And I think that has to be a bigger discussion that we need to have globally versus just nitpicking different countries as far as, oh, Americans talk about it, the UK is not saying anything, France is not saying anything, or they might just give us some very niceties things, such as far as, oh, we get it, we understand, and they don't do anything about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you know what? What's interesting, Collin, is it's interesting. And thank you for bringing up the whole immigrant portion of all of this, because again, even though I support reparations for American descendants of enslaved Africans, neither you nor I would have a claim for reparations in these United States, because our lineage is different than somebody whose grandparents and great-grandparents were sharecroppers in Mobile, Alabama, for example. Okay. Now, something that you mentioned with respect to the global diaspora there, and again, my parents are from Trinidad, so my claim for reparations would not be from the United States. My claim for reparations would be from the United Kingdom, the country of my birth, because the country where my parents were born is Trinidad. They were a colony of England until 1962. There is a framework for this called CARICOM, and it is a Caribbean community of nations. And they actually, if you go on the website on CARICOMreparations.org, there is a 10-point plan. And I just happened to write this down because I'm a prepared brother. The 10-point plan includes a full formal apology, repatriation, an indigenous peoples development program, cultural institutions, public health, illiteracy eradication, an African knowledge program, psychological rehabilitation, a technology transfer, and number 10, debt cancellation. Now, something else that I don't think people understand with respect to reparations is what reparations actually are. And so much of everything you mentioned, Collin, makes so much sense, because reparations is more than just a check. It's rebuilding the institutions that indemnify Black people and indigenous people and other people of color who have been brutalized and colonized for centuries. Now, there's a magnificent book that I urge everybody to read. And in fact, Jackson, the last time I was on your show, I talked about this book. It's called From Here to Equality. It's by Dr. Sandy Darity. He is a professor of economics. There you go. Perfect. Hey. Fabulous. And he's a professor of economics at Duke University. Duke is a wonderful school. Even though I'm a Wake Forest guy, Duke is still a fabulous institution. Now, in that book, he discusses a framework of reparations called ARC. It's an acronym. It stands for Acknowledgement, Redress, and Closure. Acknowledgement, redress, and closure. Acknowledgement. Hey, we made a mistake. We fucked up. Something happened here. We need to make this right. Redress is the actual action of remedying a situation. Now, this is directly from the book from Dr. Darity. Redress can take two paths. You can either take atonement or you can take restitution. Atonement. yo, sorry, can you forgive me? Let's hug it out. Atonement. Restitution. Restitution happens when there is a legal framework for indemnifying people who had suffered an injury or some sort of loss. Now, with respect to, let's say, the Rwandan genocide or the 215 indigenous children that were found in that residential school in Kamloops, British Columbia, or American descendants of enslaved Africans, or anybody that's been colonized by the major countries in Europe that colonized people, which were France, Germany, Belgium, England, Spain, Italy, and Portugal. When you think about that, atonement is an inappropriate response to completing the ARC process for reparations. Because in order to atone, the people that you are trying to receive forgiveness from have to be there to accept the forgiveness. The people are dead. You can't ask the dead people for forgiveness. So the only way to pursue reparations is through that legal framework. And the last time I checked, killing people and kidnapping people and taking people from their land and trafficking them, that's illegal. Those are not only civil rights violations, those are human rights violations. So, and then you put them to work and you don't pay them, you don't give them health care, you don't give them places to live, you don't educate them, you don't give them homes, you subjugate them, you don't give them 14th Amendment protections, which are equal protection under the law. You don't truly give them 13th Amendment protections, which is ending slavery in the United States, because look at the prison industrial complex. You don't give them 15th, 19th, 23rd, or 26th Amendment rights, which are all the voting right, vote laws to vote, especially the 15th Amendment, which allowed Black men to vote, but Black women weren't allowed to vote until the 19th Amendment. And the 19th Amendment was ratified a little more than 100 years ago. So when we talk about it's restitution that must be the way forward. Once you've reached restitution, closure, that's the CNR, closure. Look, do we agree on this? Is everybody satisfied with the terms of the agreement? Yep. Okay. You shake hands and you go on about your lives. And there's been plenty of evidence of the United States paying reparations to people. This has happened. There are plenty of indigenous people in the United States, the Sioux, the Chippewas, the Ottawas, the Klamath of Oregon. They've received reparations from the United States government. Native Alaskans received 44 million acres of land and $1.1 billion. The United States paid Japanese Americans $1.6 billion. American descendants of enslaved Africans are the only groups of people who have not received reparations from the United States federal government. And we are the people who built this country.
Right.
We built this country. Wall Street was built with African labor because it was Wall Street, because the slaves were placed against a wall in southern New York. And that is where it was an open slave trade market. And they were leaning against the wall. That is why it's called Wall Street.
I didn't even know that.
Look, man, look. This is why you have this channel here. It's because we are educating people tonight.
No,
okay?
yeah, 100%.
We're educating
I mean, like,
people.
that, getting back to like what Collin said, like with your channel, it's like, look, I've developed so much since I started this channel. You know, it's like, even though, you know, you, Collin, like you were like, you know, I see myself as someone who cares deeply about these issues, and that's why I'm starting this channel, and we'll see where it goes, you know. But it's like, you, like, from being able to have that deep understanding, that passion, the moral clarity, it's like, your commentary on like all issues is going to be incredible. And it's also just like a learning experience. Like, I feel like I've learned so much and developed so much in my views since I started my channel. And like, even in this discussion, I've learned so many new things. One thing that we haven't talked about yet, but DC brought up in a super chat that I put up on the screen, a nonviolent Black anarchist community center was bombed by cops in 1985, killing 11, 5 of whom were children. Yes. Look up Move Philadelphia, Free Mumia. And, you know, those of you who know the story, know the, you know, the phrase Free Mumia, basically like that. I mean, that actually has been in the news a lot recently, especially in like leftist circles. I don't want to mispronounce the name, but Mumia Abu Jamal, yes. Who was sentenced to you know, death, like for allegedly killing a cop but was, as we all know, like it's not as with every single story, like also with what happened at Black Wall Street, it's not as simple as what the white people, the racist white people during the time, are alleging, you know. And like now there's calls to prevent that from happening. And I also, before we continue on here, I want to thank DMB Fawn H for joining as a member on the channel. Appreciate you. Thank you for supporting the work. You're always in the streams, and I hope you're doing well. So
yeah, real quick, Jackson. I remember Operation. I was 9 years old when that happened, and yes, I just aged myself because it happened in 1985. So yeah, I remember this, and let's not. I think it was a black mayor at the time, and hardly any of the people got none of the people got prosecuted. They dropped. It was in Osage Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and they dropped a bomb on a house, and they used some special chemical agent that was incredibly corrosive, and it caused a really stronger, hotter fire, and it burned basically 2 city blocks of Philadelphia. 2 city blocks. This is, again, when we talk about defunding the police, when we talk about defunding the Pentagon, 1985, Philadelphia police dropped a bomb in the middle of a residential neighborhood. And it was like, okay, yeah, it was justified because, hey, you know what? All right, we have these black people who are militant and we're essentially black hippies. We can't have that. Okay, and hey, they have guns and they're shooting back at us because we shot at them. Okay, no, we're going to drop a bomb on them. And think about what happened at 100 years ago with Black Wall Street. You have a bunch of black people that are well-to-do and just minding their own businesses, want their own thing going on. And the same angry white police officers and the Ku Klux Klan, which are really the Boo Klux Klan, dropped bombs on people in Wall Street. And the same thing happened in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, almost 40 years ago. Ridiculous.
Now the same thing's happening in the name of gentrification as well, like what we saw happen with Breonna Taylor. I mean, it's the same old song and dance. You know, it's like people at the start when they first saw that story, I think. There were many people who are like, damn, how could this have happened? And then like we see the court documents come out, we see the FOIA requests come up, and we begin to learn like, oh, this was literally just in execution at the hands of this massive gentrification campaign. And it's the same thing over and over and over. And it's really cultural genocide, systemic cultural genocide. It's comparable to what Joe, you just brought up with regard to the reports say 215 children, Indigenous First Nations children in Canada who were their body remains were found at one of the there's many names for what they call these things, like boarding schools. They were like forced assimilation schools, which is even is like a positive characterization of what they really were. We're beginning to realize they're like these like brutal like genocide centers where they would they would beat these indigenous children if they talked in their native languages. They would psychologically torture these kids. Some of these kids that were found in these mass graves at the school recently were as young as 3 years old. Residential schools. Yeah. When you say, I know they call them residential schools. Thank you, JC, for pointing out that when we call them residential schools or boarding schools, it just seems like such a revisionist phrase of what they really are. And I hesitate to even use those phrases because like it makes the average person who's not aware of what really happened there think that, they weren't these genocide centers, and that's what they are. If any of you want to talk about that, I know that was one of the points in the stories we wanted to discuss today.
Collin, you want to go, bro?
I think
no, it's up to you.
Well, I want to say this. I think just in light of everything that was said, because Jackson, because I remember when you were here, and I shared, just my free passports. Like Joe and I have, we're multinational people, and I remember you, Jackson, asking me, well, why in the hell do you want to live in this country? And And I don't think I gave you a good answer then, but I really had to process and think about this a little bit more, this year, because for all intents and purposes, in light of the crap that's going on in this country, like, I don't have to live here. Like, I can just pack up my bags and go take your pick. Really. I'm not, and I understand that privilege. I know Joe understands that privilege, as far as we don't have to live here, but I think I realized something, especially over the last couple of months, is the reality is, in August, I would have lived in this country for 30 years. And for all intents and purposes, I basically grew up in this country. I was educated here. I've made some of my closest friends here. I basically, I've lived here, and I really have appreciated, what this, for better or for worse, what this country has given me. But I realized the reason why I'm able to do the stuff that I'm able to do is because of the sacrifices that foundational Black Americans had to make to ensure that I have that opportunity to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like I have to pay gratitude to African Americans for their ancestors and mine, by association, sacrifice to allow us to get us the small privileges that we relatively get in this country. And so I feel like, I do feel in some ways it's part of my responsibility to say, you know what? Look, as we talked about reparations, even though I may not necessarily benefit directly in this country, but I'm damn sure as hell I'm going to fight to ensure that other Black people will.
I agree.
I'm going to fight for damn sure that you're going to get Medicare for all. I'm going to fight for damn sure that you're going to get free college. So I think if I left, to me, that would be kind of a cop-out in a sense, because I've taken advantage of the things that have made me who I am today. And so the idea of me just kind of taking all that stuff and leaving, I think, is doing a disservice to the African-American community. So I would rather stay and rather fight tooth and nail. And even if African-Americans don't necessarily believe that they deserve it, then I'm just going to be like, that's fine. I still think you do. And I'm going to fight for you on your behalf to ensure that you do get a little piece of the reparations that are owed to us collectively within the diaspora. So I think just for me, it's more about, I don't want to even say pay it forward because it's not, even so much that. But I think for me, it's the idea of making sure that I'm showing that gratitude in what the bits that I was able to get in this country, and being able to say, I honor the people who came before who fought for these rights and these privileges that we do have. That again, I'm able to travel and being able to kind of share and learn other things. And I want for you to have the same thing too.
That's a really cool perspective. I like that. And I mean, like, I've definitely grappled with a similar thing, like just like, suffering at the hands of the state, even being like a working class white person, it's like, it's continuing that fight for the people who can't fight, and not just like moving elsewhere and giving up in a certain, it's not that you're giving up. It just kind of feels like it does kind of feel like that, like you're not giving it your all to continue the fight. That's interesting.
And look, for me, it's like, and I think for many of us in the Black community, because I talked to my dad a lot about this, because my dad is a Pan-African, very much into Black liberation, but I think even now he's 80, but I think even now he's kind of getting to the point now of being like, is this really worth it? What are we doing? Because it seems like we're not necessarily getting the message. And to his point, I kind of agree. I don't think we are always getting the point, but I do see this hope. I think as far as your generation, Jackson, because you're more or less a Zoomer, and I see teens and like people in their 20s now who I think, in my mind, are not dealing with the bullshit. Like, I think they're kind of catching on as far as, oh, this country is fucked.
Yes.
So and for me, that's who I'm doing this for. It's forget the boomers because they're gone, you know, like they got their piece and they're done, you know. But my thing is, and I think especially for me being a teacher, like who are I'm not even sure what they are. But the idea for them is like, you have the opportunity to really make change and you can really push for it because you've seen what has happened. You're aware of what's happened and you're more traveled. You're more, especially with the internet, like everything is so interconnected now. I think for me, like the idea, like when George Floyd happened last year, the first people that called me to check in on me was my friends in Uganda. And the first thing I was like, wait, how did you find this out? Because I mean, internet is kind of spotty over there, you know, but the fact that they even knew what was going on, it was just kind of like, okay, one, like, this is a big deal. But number two, it's like, people are watching us. People are seeing us. And so, and I think in a lot stronger way than we ever have before. So for me, it's like, it's in my best interest to try and fight because the world is watching us. And I think people are beginning to realize, oh, America ain't that great of a place, really, you know? And so for me, it's like, I would rather stay here and try my best to even change some minds here versus leaving and then, you know, taking the easy way out and just being like, okay, well, I don't have to deal with this. That's not to say I don't get stressed out about it. But at the same time, I'm like, I'd rather have my life mean something, even if it's just a little bit, to ensure that we do have the things that we deserve, not just for Black people primarily, but for everybody in this country who needs these things.
Yeah, Joe, what are your thoughts on that? Because you also, you know,
I know you think a little differently, Joe, but I mean, I'm just speaking for myself here.
No, it's all good. It's all
and I
good.
had to reflect on that a bit in light of what Jackson asked me. And I know we've had this conversation too, and I know you might think a little differently. But I think for me, it's the idea of, again, I think ultimately it's about respect for me, because no matter what, you know, we built this nation, and I think that has to be edified a lot more because I think it's so easy for people to kind of dismiss that idea.
Sure.
But if it wasn't for us, there wouldn't be America. Well, literally America, because, you know, this country was built on the backs of slavery. So without slavery, this country wouldn't be what it is.
I agree.
And so we have to edify that a lot more. We have to empower our people a lot. We have to empower everybody with that a lot more. But I think in light of all this hidden history that we're just talking about, and I'm not even sure if other channels will be necessarily talking about the stuff that we're talking about today.
No, we're not.
You know, but there has to come a point where we need to empower ourselves with the history of and the knowledge of, okay, this happened, but I can do something about it.
Right.
And I think especially for me, having traveled and kind of seeing, oh, people do things differently over here. You know, I think that's also, and I know you can speak more to that, Joe, because you're extensively traveled, but that's kind of shaped who I am, and just kind of realizing, oh, this is possible. Like, and I say this all the time. I know, Jackson, you've said this before, but Rwanda has a version of universal healthcare. It's incomplete, but if 90% of Rwandans are able to have some basic form of healthcare, for a country where the average salary is about $700 a month, if they're able to do something like that, then how in the hell can we not do something like that in allegedly the richest country in the common area?
Exactly.
And I think it's something that Black people need to especially make that connection. Like, oh, this developing country has a version of healthcare that we don't have. What's going on?
What's going on? I couldn't agree with you more. Couldn't agree with you more, Collin. And what's interesting about your perspective on not wanting to go somewhere else where you have citizenship, and because my parents left Trinidad to go somewhere else because they felt as if their future or their lives couldn't realize their fullest potential being in Port of
Mine
Trinidad.
too.
Right. So my mother went to England, became trained to be a nurse there, and that's where I was born. And then my father came to America, did pipe fitting and steam fitting and plumbing, and then they got married, and then everybody came back to America. But I don't necessarily see it the same way as you, because even though we have, in effect, grown up here, even though we are not born naturalized, born here, I don't necessarily think that precludes us from exercising our human rights by going to live somewhere else, because we have the right to go somewhere else if we don't like where we are now. And my parents and your parents did that 55, 65 years ago because they didn't necessarily like where they were and they wanted to go somewhere else. And I think the fact that you and I have the privilege and availability to go somewhere else because we don't necessarily, I shouldn't even say necessarily, we don't like where we are now. I don't think that's something we can take lightly. But at the same time, I thoroughly respect your position and your stance on staying and fighting, because there are people who have been here that you can't turn your back on. And I understand that, and I respect that, and I thoroughly understand that. But I think there's also a group of people who would look and say, hey, well, you know what? They're not from here anyway. So maybe some of the issues that they are fighting for, it's really not their fight. So if they left, it wouldn't necessarily be a big deal anyway. And I can sort of understand that perspective also.
And I want to say this because, again, connecting it to Africa, because there's this tendency in Africa where the infrastructure is just not there for you to do well within East Africa generally, like for the average citizen. More often than not, the idea that especially youth have is, I have to go elsewhere. You know, I have to go to Turkey. I have to go to Dubai. I have to go to Europe. I have to come here, you know. But the problem is that for those who do come here in America, may not ever return to those countries of their birth. You know, I know that there are more Nigerian doctors in LA than there are in Nigeria itself.
It's so funny you mentioned Nigerian doctors, because my cousin Seyun, who just finished his bachelor's degree at MIT, just graduated, I think yesterday or today. His father is a Nigerian man, and his father's parents were the Nigerian ambassadors, diplomats to Trinidad. So my cousin's father, my cousin Seyun, his father is a Nigerian doctor. And he doesn't even practice medicine in Nigeria. I think he practices it somewhere in England. So perfect example. Yeah, it's just Nigerian doctors everywhere.
I've heard Richard Medhurst talk a lot about that with regard to like what he's seen happen in Syria with like his family too. It's like brain drain. It's literally like, you know, these Western countries, these imperialist colonial countries, they not only, you know, rape and pillage countries like Syria, not only, you know, put these sanctions on the countries that prevent medical and food aid from getting in, not only launch wars in these countries and try to launch coups, but they quite literally brain drain the countries and force the people within these countries who have had the opportunity to become educated or gain expertise in a certain field to feel as though they have no potential avenue for success in their home country, and that they have to flee to the colonial country to even have a chance of you know, reaching success, being able to provide for their own family at some point. And that just perpetuates this cycle. So it's interesting. You guys bring that up.
And I mean, like, I remember when I was in Uganda several years ago, I had a woman come up to me and basically ask me, how can she come over here? And I And I did not want to be the one to kind of say to her, no. But I have, and I get it. But I think, as you said, Jackson, this is the result of imperialism and white supremacy, just kind of destroying the global South to the point where people have to leave out of need, but then not necessarily having a way to return to their countries because they're just so decimated that there's nothing for them if they were to return. That it's almost better off staying in the homes of the colonizers, basically.
Yes.
And I have to say to like African youth over like in my travels is like the idea, because they have this idea of like, oh, like America is so good and it's so perfect and all this kind of stuff. But they're hearing that from the context of white people who are coming over there. So for me to kind of go over there and kind of being like, it ain't all that it's cracked up to be. Like that's a perspective that needs to be had more over there, especially. And it makes sense because they see media. What do they see primarily? White people. For the most part. Who is going to their countries generally? White people. Maybe like Arabs and maybe Chinese mixed in a little bit. But but the idea of me coming over there, as I said, is a novelty, which really shouldn't be the case. Like I think, again, kind of plugging my channel again, I don't want to be known as the representative of Western Black culture in America or in the West. Like, and I can't even really speak to that fully because I am not African American. My experience is unique to the Caribbean and Europe, and here in part. So I come in from a very unique experience. So there has to be others, especially if they're African Americans, can speak to the African American experience that they're able to kind of share in Africa. And I think we've even just done that tonight, just as far as there's so many intersectionalities between, I think, just generally what we all deal with here, but especially Black people, and how that's tied to what Africans are going through as well. And so the hope of the channel is if we're able to make those connections and being like, you know what? We aren't so different. And we aren't like, and it's not like the Africans are kind of pouring out or whatever in poverty, and then the Americans are just like, no. When it comes to a lot of political issues, especially cultural issues, there's a lot of connections there. So why don't we come together and try and figure out how we can help each other kind of resolve some of these issues in light of the countries and the cultures that we come from. And I think that, kind of speaking to you, Joe, I think that's what needs to happen among us, because we're so kind of segregated amongst ourselves, where it's like Americans are having this conversation, Caribbean people are having this conversation, Afro-Europeans having this conversation, Africans are having this conversation, where it's really like collectively, and again, bringing it back to reparations again, this should be a global discussion among us that we're able to kind of bring to the table and being like, we can bring that to our politicians and being like, look, these are our demands. This is what we need. And we're going to fight you if we don't get it.
Yep. I mean, Collin, I mean, everything you said makes so much sense, because there, again, and I spoke about this about 45 minutes ago, lineage matters. Lineage matters. And when you talk about reparations in the United States, lineage matters. And something that I've said on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/JoeNiceDJ, and the podcast on Joe and Cat Chats on Instagram and on Facebook, something I spoke about is that we must continue to internationalize the struggle. We must continue to internationalize the struggle. Jackson, you have a shirt in Arabic that says humanity, freedom, equality, and survival. About an hour and almost 20 minutes ago, I said I had that shirt in 6 languages. Why? Because the words humanity, freedom, equality, and survival, everybody understands what those 4 words mean, but they have different contexts in different places where English is not the dominant language, or what's called the mother tongue in linguistics. So if you're in Colombia and you see those words in Spanish, you understand, you know what? Yeah, I know what I'm fighting for. If you see this in Russian, yeah, it makes sense. If you see this in Arabic, okay, it makes sense. If you see it in French and you got a yellow vest and you're marching down the Champs-Élysées with the gilet jaune and the gilet noir, it makes sense. It makes sense. So internationalizing the struggle. And this is why, when kind of bringing it back to what we were talking about 20 minutes ago with respect to the indigenous children who were found in that mass grave, in that residential school. And a residential school is really a sanitized way of saying what these places actually are. There's 140 of these schools. 140 of these schools.
Yeah.
140 of them. They found 215 bodies at one part of one school. They didn't even dig up the rest of the ground. There's 140 of these schools across Canada. Canada is the second largest country in the world based on landmass. And if you've ever had to fly across Canada, and I have, it's a big ass country. I promise you that. So when you think about 140 schools, they didn't talk of detention centers, no internment camps. This is just 140 schools. Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, has done nothing except offer apologies, thoughts and prayers, no different than what the Squad or any neoliberal politician would have done in the United States. Thoughts and prayers, we're with you. If you need help, we'll help you as much as we can. Here's a phone number for some counseling, but not offering any sort of reparations, not offering any sort of investigation to where these bodies are. Nothing has been done. And this is something that I said on my podcast earlier this week, and this goes directly to internationalizing the struggle, okay? For the past 3 weeks, what we have talked about with respect to Palestine and Israel is that we must boycott, divest, and sanction Israel for the human rights and abuses and crimes against humanity that is happening to Palestinians. If we are going to be consistent with our line of thinking and internationalizing the struggle, then where is the outrage for the global community with respect to the 215 children that were found dead in that mass grave outside of Kamloops, British Columbia? Where is the outrage? Where is the statement from Emmanuel Macron? Where is the statement from Angela Merkel? Where is the commentary from Boris Johnson? What about the president of Mexico? Where is Joe Biden saying anything about this? Okay, and again, if the pressure for justice for these 215 children and all of the indigenous people in Canada, okay, the pressure must not only be internal from Canadians, but there must also be external pressure. So if Justin Trudeau isn't going to do anything about the indigenous people in Canada, not only the ones that were dead, but the ones that are still living in indigenous communities that don't have access to fresh water or healthcare or schools, then at this point, what other recourse is there than to enact a BDS situation against Canada? Why isn't this happening? And then to take it even a step further, again, if we're going to internationalize the struggle, how come the global community isn't looking at what's happening with the systematic genocide of Black people by racist police officers in the United States? Why isn't there a BDS situation against the United States?
Yeah.
Because if we're talking BDS and Israel with respect to what's happening with Palestinians and the genocide that's happening with Palestinians, okay, again, and I hate even saying these three words in connection, but I'm going to say them. All lives matter, don't they? If all lives truly matter, okay, if all lives matter, then the life of an indigenous person should have the same value as the life of a Black person living in the United States. And the life of a Black person living in the United States should have the same value as a life of a person living in Palestine or the Gaza Strip. And that person who has been bombed into oblivion by Israeli military forces, they're the people in Palestine and Golan Heights and Gaza, their lives should matter just as much as the Rohingya in Myanmar or the Uyghurs in China, or people who are being brutal or victims of kidnapping as a result in Africa by Al-Shabaab. Okay? Yeah. Again, if we're talking all lives matter, and we're talking about countries that have brutalized people, including their own citizens, then the global community should enact a BDS program against Canada, so Canada does the right thing by their indigenous population, and the global community should do the same against the United States, so the United States does right by Black people, indigenous people in the United States, and other people of color in the United States.
Yeah. And to bring it back to the Rwandan genocide again, because I talked about France quite a bit, but
Yes.
France is not only responsible, the UN,
Yes.
because they pulled out. They
out.
knew that was going to happen, and they
They
pulled
knew it
out.
was happening. They pulled out.
They knew it was happening, and they pulled out. And they pulled out just before it occurred. Clinton, former President Bill Clinton.
Oh gosh,
where were you in the midst of that? And I'll add Biden to that too. You know,
he supported everything that Bill Clinton did. Shit, Biden was to the right of Clinton, but Clinton was too busy hanging out with Monica Lewinsky. That's what he was doing. Y'all know what it is.
Maxwell as well.
Y'all know what it is. And he was hanging out with Ghislaine Maxwell and what's his name? Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Gates.
They go way back. They go way back.
Back in the Windows 95 days.
Look, you guys.
Yeah.
I really like what you're saying about like the need for like universal struggle for human rights. And Joe, we talked a lot about like what are those human rights in our last stream that like every person should be afforded.
Yes.
And it's not some like pie in the sky idea. Like we have the answers. It's quite simple. Like these have been established before. You don't need to look far or hard to find them, right? The real search is finding the people who are talking about those and actively fighting for those on a world stage. And usually you can't find those people either because they're murdered by the United States or some imperialist arm of the United States. But like, you look at presidents like Hugo Chavez, for example. Like Hugo Chavez is someone who really did commit himself to an international struggle for human rights and solidarity. Hugo Chavez, former president of Venezuela, de facto leader of like this Chavista movement down there. Like they were providing oil to I think it was to low income residents in New York. I want to say in like Brooklyn or something like that during the winter when they didn't have enough. They didn't have the capabilities to keep the power on, keep the heat on. He was always commenting on what was happening in Palestine and condemning Israel, condemning the United States as terrorist states, saying that sanctions should be placed on them for what they're doing and supporting abroad. Like that's what we need more of. But it's so unfortunate. I mean, like Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, like. They too were people who were always commenting on stuff like this. And that's why I really, really enjoy covering foreign policy on my show and talking about this, because like we want those types of people to get into power. We want those types of people to be able to continue that message, right? I mean, right now you look at a president like Maduro and like he has to be more concerned with a coup every other week, in like an assassination attempt every other week before he can even start talking about what's going on outside of his own country. It's like we need to build that solidarity so there can be that interconnectedness between not only countries but continents, and they can help build each other up. And right now it's just we don't see a lot of that. Like it's quite difficult. I covered a story the other day in which Iran was trying to sell their oil to they were trying to sell their oil to China or Venezuela. I think it was China. And like the US they seized this massive oil tanker ship. They stole the oil and then they sold it on a foreign marketplace. So it's like even when they're trying to build those international relationships between countries who don't toe the U.S. imperialist line, it's like they still are being defeated. We just need more people so they can overcome that. But
look at the craziness that happened in Bolivia with Evo Morales being pushed out, Janine Áñez being put in by the United States government, and then the indigenous movement, the Mass Party, movement for socialism, the party that Evo Morales started, they had to move mountains to get Evo Morales' second in command, Luis Arce, to become president of the country. And Bolivia looks like it's on track right now. Look at Brazil with Lula da Silva against Jair Bolsonaro.
Stuff.
Yeah, so
Peru, Pedro Castillo.
I was just going to say Peru and Pedro Castillo. Yes.
We almost had Ecuador. We almost had a victory there.
Yep.
Before we continue, also, I didn't get to say this earlier, but I want to thank you, M. David Sarabi. Your super chat. I do appreciate it. Thank you so much. And there was also someone earlier who commented in chat. I don't remember their username, but it was in reference to the conversation we were having about like moving or staying in the United States if you have like dual citizenship elsewhere. And they were like, look, like, moving to another country and starting over is not easy either. Like, that's not an easy task either. That's not like
No.
it's not, it's not something that like is something that we would be envious of, like the struggle to do. And it's like, that's a very good point as well. It's not easy to move elsewhere and start over, but like, I think what
I
Collin,
should
you
know.
and I were
I
getting at
moved
is
here when I was 11, and I remember how hard it
Yeah.
was. So
it's just like
Oh.
in certain countries you are afforded at least some more rights than you have here. But yes, all countries do have their problems. But I wanted to
before
bring up
the
that point.
pandemic, I was living in Canada. The only reason I'm back here in the United States is because I can't get across the border into Canada. I moved to Canada almost 2 years to the day. I moved up to Canada with my now ex-girlfriend. But yeah, I was living in Vancouver before the pandemic. Then I was on tour in Eastern Europe, 3 shows into a 10-show tour of Eastern Europe. The entire world decided to shut down, and my options were to either stay in Sarajevo, Bosnia, or come back to the United States. And knowing what I know now, I might have made a different decision.
You've got your first show coming up soon, right?
Oh yeah, Infrasound Music Festival. I'm in Minneapolis next week. It's going to be live, back on the turntables. I can't wait.
Minneapolis homies, turn up.
Oh gosh, Minneapolis, St. Paul. If you're in Madison, Wisconsin, the entire Midwest. You're in Chicago, drive up. Look, y'all know what it is.
I'm assuming people can find that at can they find it at DJ Joe or at JoeNiceDJ.net?
No. Just on my social medias, Facebook.com/JoeNiceDJ, Instagram JoeNiceDJ, YouTube JoeNiceDJ, or just look up Infrasound Music Festival.
I'm linking all these in the chat. We got it in the chat for everyone.
Infrasound Music Festival. It's going to be crazy. I'm actually on the main stage on Saturday night. I think at either 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. 60-minute workout, 60-minute set. Look, man, the only thing easier than playing 60 minutes of music is breathing. And I didn't need to be taught how to breathe, So can't wait.
Joe, I gotta ask you, when you coming to the East Coast, man?
Bro, look, I live on the East Coast. Look, I mean, there's talk of some shows coming up in DC sometime later this summer.
All right.
And speaking of which, I'm coming up to DC anyway on July 24th, where this kind of goes to the next point. Because of the Medicare for All marches that are taking place across the country, I'm one of the guest speakers. And I know there's a bunch of musical acts that are going to be there. I might be one of them. I'm not sure yet. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to be one of the guest speakers at the Medicare for All marches that are taking place across the country. And they are literally all over the place. We're adding more cities every single day. Seattle, Portland, San Diego, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Asheville, North Carolina, New York City just signed on, Chicago, Minneapolis, Madison, Wisconsin. I want to say Tampa, Florida is in, Washington, D.C., is in. So there's a bunch of cities that are signed on right now.
Incredible.
And again, and Jackson, and again, largen up yourself, man. Big up to you, because some of this energy and this fervor for Medicare for All came from you. Because look, there were 35 or 40 of us marching around saying, "Don't drop the ball, Medicare for All," walking around Constitution Avenue and Independence Avenue, munching on sourdough bread and trying to not get arrested. So now it's true. It's what it was. Y'all know it's what it was. But now, and what's crazy is, of the 35 or 40 of us, half of us had YouTube channels. So it just goes to show how connected we actually already are. But yeah, I mean, this Medicare for All movement, it's a real thing. And again, as I spoke on the video when I was standing right next to you, Collin, when John from Status Quo asked us, "Hey, do you have something to say about this?" And I said, look, that healthcare is a human right. It's a human right based upon Article 25 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. There are basic social services that we, as not only American citizens, but we as human beings that have breath in our lungs and blood in our veins and eyes that can see and mouths that can chew and speak with, we are supposed to have healthcare. We're supposed to have it. And it's not supposed to be a for-profit situation. We are supposed to have it as a result of us merely existing. And the fact that we don't have a government-managed or single-payer healthcare system for everybody in the United States speaks to the cravenness and avariciousness of the insurance industry, but it also speaks to how deranged and psychopathic our government leadership truly is.
I was talking to someone who's friends with Crystal Ball and Kyle Kalinske, and they were like, they kind of thought that the force the vote effort was going to work. Like they kind of like the apparently per this person I know, they were saying like, I kind of thought that like Crystal and Kyle really believed that the progressives were going to cave in the right way, I guess is a better way of phrasing it, and actually force the vote on Medicare for all. It's very interesting how it's just so interesting that like there were so many people who believed in the message for so long. I mean, like I was definitely leaning towards like, no, they're probably going to vote for Pelosi, but I was still up in the air about it. More 50-50, but like that shit was wild. Like there's a lot of people who really thought that, and not just like average people like us who are like just trying to get out there and fucking fight for this shit, but like people who are very high up in the political world who are like, know these people, help get these people elected initially, who thought they're going to do the right thing. It's been crazy to watch the progression of these Congress people, and really, you know, from their first day, like Cory Bush and all of them. It's been interesting to watch.
And you know what? Go ahead, Joe.
No, go for it. You got it, bro. You got it.
I think, you know, like, but as AOC said, we got to make him do it. And that right now includes her and the squad. So, and I mean, but I think ultimately it is going to be a lot harder now because I think, you know, well, in a lot of ways, I feel by design, we're beginning to come out of the pandemic. People are going back to work. You know, everyone's starting to get vaccinated. You know, like it's summer, so everybody's just looking to enjoy themselves, whether I am too. But, you know, we haven't talked about Medicare for all really since then, honestly. Like it hasn't been a part of the national conversation, again, by design.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So we have to be the ones to kind of keep at it, you know, as far as, and, you know, and I think especially now, like, especially since I'm going to start my own channel soon enough, but I think for me, this is kind of the importance of why we need independent media. Perfect. Because, you know, I think just a couple of weeks ago, I'm not sure who it was, maybe Vox, but put some mainstream, whatever, put some thing on Addie Parkman. But it was basically like a fluff piece just as far as, you know, his interviews with Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg and all this kind of stuff. And basically they were like, oh yeah, you know, Kamala being like, oh, I would support Medicare for or whatever. And then, you know, they totally just did a 180 on that completely. And I'm kind of like, you know, like, this is the kind of thing that should be kind of talked about right now. Like, why aren't we challenging, you know, Kamala Harris, who at one point, you know, because I remember in the primaries where basically they were like, who supports Medicare for all? She raised her hand, you know, like, why isn't the media challenging them and being like, you were for this, what happened? You're in the middle of a pandemic, you know, where people are in the biggest need of healthcare. What happened? You know, and it's really frustrating that, you know, the mainstream media is basically playing footsies with Biden, and Kamala where is she? She hasn't really done, like, where has she been? So I think really, and kind of also connecting it to, if we're thinking more on a global scope, you know, like, because I think in America, we're so isolated to global issues.
Yes.
That we're really so unaware of what's going on outside these. And I mean, you know, I remember when I was in London a couple of years ago, you know, I was talking to my younger sister and brother-in-law, and we were having a conversation about Bernie Sanders. Like, they knew something, you know, they weren't able to have the conversations about Bernie that we can have, but they at least kind of knew what was going on as far as the political scope in America. You know, I can't tell you what's going on politically, what's going on in the UK right now, to be quite honest with you, you know, or anywhere in the country, anywhere else, other than like if I happen to stumble upon it or just randomly find it somewhere. So I think just the idea, I think independent media, and I think especially with global, like foreign policy, is so important, because we just kind of realized tonight, well, I think we've already kind of known, but I hope the audience is kind of making this connection. Like, a lot of these issues connect. And I
Yes.
think if people are saying, oh, this country is doing this, but we don't have this, we're doing this, but this country is not doing that, we begin to ask some questions. And then when we're able to ask, when we start asking those questions, then we're able to kind of go a little deeper and kind of figure out, okay, why are things really happening? The mask will be able to come off, and then I think that will be more of a reason for us to really come out in the street and really fight for the change that we're kind of seeing in other countries, and what they're capable of doing or not doing, and how we are better able to respond to that. So yeah, I think all of it, especially with the mainstream media, is by design, that they isolate us on purpose as far as what's happening in the world.
Yep.
And so I think just the idea of independent media is so important, because for the most part, you're able to touch on those issues without, well, YouTube is trying its best, but but at least you have the forum where you not have to worry about, oh, I have to worry about the higher ups not talking about this. If you're looking at like Crystal and Kyle this week, having, or Crystal and Saga actually having to be limited on certain issues, it's just as far as the Hill, which is bullshit. So
yeah. And I kind of see an interesting conversation in chat surrounding like violent revolutions versus pushing for pacifism to create political changes. And that's like it's a really interesting conversation that was actually, I think it was like the 2016 like national like either high school or college debate championships. Like that was the final debate in the championships, was surrounding whether or not violent revolutions are ever justifiable. And
I will say this in the words of Tyler Perry's Medea. There are times when you can be cool, and there are times when you have to act a fool in order to get results. And I'm saying that again in talking with George Floyd. Why was he arrested?
Let's talk about it.
The only reason why he was arrested, they burned down the police station. So, and I'm not saying we should hit for that every single time. But if we're trying to be cool about change and people aren't listening, whatever happens.
And you know what, Collin? And you know what, Collin, you bring, and I understood what you were saying with this. With respect, you mean that why was Derek Chauvin and the other 3 officers arrested? Why were they arrested? Now, George Floyd wasn't arrested because Minneapolis burnt down the police station. George Floyd was killed because we had racist police officers. But but on a bigger perspective, when we talk about the failure of government, because again, we have 538 people in Washington, D.C. that really aren't doing anything for us. Again, when we talk about basic human rights, the reason why George Floyd had COVID when he was arrested, George Floyd had COVID, and George Floyd was trying to pass a counterfeit $20 bill. I want everybody to really think about this. If the federal government, in the middle of a pandemic, when everybody lost their jobs, gave everybody health care and a universal basic income, do you think George Floyd, a 46-year-old man, would be trying to pass a counterfeit $20 bill? Absolutely not. It wouldn't have happened. George Floyd would still be alive today. He would still be alive today. Okay. So again, George Floyd's death, yes, and again, it's obviously a failure of Joe Biden and his policies, his crime bill, militarizing police, etc. But it's also a failure of our government now, because again, there's no reason anybody should have to pass a counterfeit $20 bill. And moreover, the owner of Cup Foods in Minneapolis, it was, I think, a 19-year-old kid that was operating the store at the time. It was the cashier. Why, if you're the store owner, why are you sending a 19-year-old kid to go after a grown man to say, hey, yo, why are you passing this fake $20 bill? Why are you doing this? How come the store owner didn't confront George Floyd about this? You see where I'm going with this? There's just so many bits and pieces that people just aren't looking at with respect to the George Floyd situation. And now we have, and again, there's There's loads of black people that are being killed across the country. George Floyd was one of them. The Andrew Brown Jr. situation, 3 hours away from where I am in Elizabeth City, nothing's going to happen with those cops. We still don't know what's happening with the Ahmaud Arbery case, or Walter Wallace Jr. in Philadelphia, or Rashard Brooks, or Daniel Prude. What's happening with Jacob Blake? What about what's the kid's name? The kid in Denver, the young guy in Denver.
Elijah
McClain. Elijah McClain. Elijah McClain. I mean, what's happening with them? And again, when we talk about internationalizing the struggle, we've seen police officers kill people around the world. Look at Cedric Chouvet in France. He was killed by a knee to the neck by police officers. Look at Javier Ordóñez in Bogota, Colombia. He was killed by a knee to the neck. We look at Angel Zapata Hernandez, who was the guy in Alameda, California, who was killed by a knee to the neck by the Alameda traffic officers. There was that lady who was a refugee from El Salvador who was killed in Mexico City, again, with a knee to the neck by police officers. So this whole police genocide situation is not just limited to black people in the United States, although it does seem like that. Again, people talk about the pandemic being COVID-19. The other pandemic is the police state that we are in right now.
Yeah. Right. And, and I one of the things you brought up in our discussion earlier was like about the comparisons between this police genocide to like the US funded genocide in Palestine right now. And it's like, bring it back even to the discussion about like violent revolutions and like self-defense. It's like what Fidel Castro always said was, we didn't choose the route of violence. The oppressors forced that route on us. Like we tried to be peaceful. We tried to ask for our rights. We tried to say that, we need, democracy here. We need to be heard. We need to, have our basic, rights being met by our state. When they don't have those rights being met, of course you're going to defend yourself. Of course you're going to, go to whatever means necessary to advocate for you and your people. And you see that happening in with like a lot of the Empire Files videos from Gaza and from the occupied territory. It's like you will hear each and every person in Gaza say, we don't care. We'll fight to our last son if it means that we're going to be continuing the struggle for liberation. And it's like, it really is a very comparable situation to what we're seeing happen here. It's like, yeah, no shit, we're burning stuff down. No shit, we're committing property damage, whatever. It's like, how else do you expect people to express themselves when they're not being heard at the ballot box, when they're not being, the courts are consistently protecting police and like erasing the evidence of what's actually happening. They're believing the liar police in every single situation. It's like, what else do you expect people to do? We have no other route.
Yeah, right. It's hard to be hurt and civil at the same time, guys.
Right.
It's hard to be hurt and civil at the same time. And when you are constantly being in pain, when you're constantly being oppressed, eventually look, Jesus turned the other cheek, but not everybody is Jesus. You know what I mean? Not everybody's willing to
flip tables, though. So
say again.
Jesus flipped tables, though.
Yeah, he did.
So even he had a limit.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, it's yeah.
Crazy stuff.
Jesus, yeah, man, it's a lot.
Well, I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to hit on. We've been talking for a minute, but if there's any other conversation points you think we miss, I'd be happy.
I feel like we kind of hit everything in I think in a kind of more succinct way, so it just kind of all kind of connected, which I think was very cool.
It did.
I'm very happy with that conversation. That was good.
Me too. Something else I want to bring up, and again, and I know a lot of people are in the pandemic. People are still staying home, and mental health is an issue, and I think it's something that we need to pay attention to. And I want to make sure that we talk about this, the Naomi Osaka situation with the French Open, and how how they were like, hey, look, if you don't talk, we're putting you out of this tournament. And then the other 3 tournaments, the Australian Open, the US Open, and Wimbledon are all like, oh, well, Naomi Osaka doesn't want to talk, then we're not going to have her play at these tournaments either. What's interesting about all of this is right-wing American media, Laura Ingraham told LeBron James, just shut up and dribble.
Shut up and dribble.
Okay? And essentially...
Wait. Oh, you can't talk about LeBron right now. I'm still hurting after last night.
My bad. Sorry about that.
Kobe never would have walked out with 7 minutes left in the game.
No,
what the fuck was that? Game 5. Kobe never would have walked out. Okay, I'm sorry.
He would have done that. But no, it's all good.
I appreciate you bringing this up. That was just a little bit too close to home.
I didn't mean to go that way, bro. I didn't mean to go that way. But Laura Ingraham said, hey, LeBron, shut up and dribble. And that's essentially what we've seen from really older Republicans, older white people saying, hey, look, black people, black athletes, shut up and dribble. Hey, in the National Football League, we're not taking a knee to protest racial injustice. We're not doing this Colin Kaepernick stuff. So when a black athlete actually just doesn't want to talk to anybody and actually just wants to shut up and play, the major tennis problem. That's a problem. What the fuck do they want black people to do? Seriously. What the hell do you want black people to do?
That's true. I didn't even think about that.
Seriously. When it's hey, you know, I'm taking a knee. I'm taking a knee to protest racial injustice. When Colin Kaepernick did everything right, spoke to Nate Boyer, who was a former Army Ranger, and said, hey, you know what? Taking a knee is the right way to go about this. Don't sit down because taking a knee is respectful to the troops. Trump says you're disrespecting the troops. Get that son of a bitch off the field. But
hold on.
Yes,
but let's bring it back. Tim Tebow did the same shit, right? Let's bring it back. Tim Tebow did the same thing, but and everybody was kind of like praising him, myself included at that time, you know. But look, I was very much caught in church for a minute, but you know, but you gotta be consistent here. So it's like you gotta be consistent.
You know, sorry, keep going.
Go for it, Colin.
Go for it.
I was just gonna say it's the power of withholding your labor. You know, like now she has sparked this massive conversation over withholding her labor and saying like, look, if you guys aren't gonna, if you're gonna continue charging me these ridiculous fees, I mean, it was like tens of thousands of dollars, right? That they were gonna,
it was like $12,000 a day.
Yeah, crazy that they were gonna charge her for not speaking at these dumb press events, which like. First of all, like they always ask the same dumb questions. It's all like, how do you think your performance was out there? You know, many are comparing you to be the next Serena Williams. No, you're on the level. You've already, you know, challenged her a few times. It's like it's the same thing every single time. So who cares if she does these press events? If you want your athletes to perform at the highest capacity possible, you've got to make sure that their mental health is in order first. And if she's telling you that look, like if you want me to do my job and perform at my highest capacity and be able to contribute what I want to be able to contribute to this sport and to your organization, let me have my mental health in order first. You know,
it's the same thing that we need to have happen in the United States. If we need worker strikes across this country, what Naomi Osaka is doing should be what Naomi Osaka is doing now is what the National Basketball Association should have followed through on last year when George Floyd was killed on May 25th. That's what should have happened. The Milwaukee Bucks should have not listened to Barack Obama. They should have said, you know what? Yeah, we're not doing anything. We're not playing. We are not just entertainment. We are not. This basketball court is not a remix of The Plantation. We are not doing this. We are shutting this whole shit down.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, and again, this is probably more of a European thing. And I know Serena Williams has offered her support, Venus has offered her support. But what I would love to see happen is players, the WTA, the Women's Tennis Association, and the men just say, hey, you know what? Let Naomi Osaka play again. If you sanction her, you sanction all of us. And people don't go to Roland Garros, the Arthur Ashe Center, Wimbledon, the All Lawn Tennis Club in Southwest London, and people don't go to the Rod Laver Arena in Melbourne, Australia, to see a bunch of old guys and old women that are administrators for these tournaments. No, they go to see the best athletes hit a fuzzy ball across a net back and forth, and hopefully win a lot of money in the process. So if you want the talent to be there, you need to listen to the demands of the labor. And this is no different than the bigger picture in the United States. If you want people in this country, if you want the government needs to listen to the people. That's what needs to happen. We need to shut this whole country down. Workers' strikes, intra-industry and inter-industry. Shut it down. Shut it down.
Yeah.
And wear yellow vests in the streets too.
I've seen multiple professional athletes come out in support of Naomi and you know, just say, you know, I stand in solidarity with you. I wish you nothing but the best, which is great to see. You love to see that.
It's great to see, but again, as I said, actions speak louder than words.
Action, yes. Action.
So,
it's true.
Like,
it's true.
and
You're
I think, and yeah, I mean, we're at the point, like, enough talking, you know, and I think that's and again, coming back to you, Jackson, like, when they said force a vote, you actually were like, okay, I'm going. So I really respected you for taking your time and your money in order to come here and try to force a vote, you know? So, but I think, and again, I feel like if we're able to do that more on a global scale and being like, we're not going to take any bullshit, you know, from essentially the elites, you know, and I think just really in this conversation, because like I had to do some research just to make sure I got the Uganda stuff right. Hopefully I got it right to those of you who are watching. So hopefully I did you all justice somewhat. But the more I think especially watching you and other independent media, you know, over the last couple of years especially, the more I'm seeing it is really the case of the elites versus everybody else.
Yes.
And how they like to use the identity as far as your race, your gender, you know, whatever it may be, to really pit us against each other while they're going off with their millions or whatever else, having a grand old time while we are struggling in the streets, trying to make ends meet. And really, like, enough is enough. And I really hope that we're able to get to the point where we're able, not just here, I want to see this happen. And you know what? Here's the thing. I am seeing it happening. I think that's the good thing. It's happening. But I would love it if it was more of a global scope as far as people, like what we see in France, what I've seen in Uganda. Like, I remember coming back from Uganda the last time, there was literally a protest to the point where, like, they were shooting guns at us. Like, my window nearly got shot out, like, from the car that I was driving in on the way to the airport, you know? So the good thing is stuff is happening in small bits and pieces, but I think collectively, you know, it has to be the case of you either give us what you need or, as I was trying to say before, whatever happens, happens. I'm not promoting anything, but if we're doing things the right way, you know, if we're looking at the Black experience, you know, like, we did our marches, we did our praying, we did all of that. And what frustrates me, you know, especially in the church, is like, people are saying you need to continue to pray and all that kind of stuff. And I get that to a point. And kind of what I was saying about forgiveness, I get that to a point. But there has to be some action that kind of comes along with that as well. So like, so if you're saying that you're going to do something for me and you're not going to do it, then, you know, you got to feel the hard way. Whatever that, however you interpret that is however you can interpret that. So,
I hear you.
Yeah. You know,
maybe we'll be making another trip down by the Whole Foods, right a few blocks off from the Capitol.
Yeah.
You know, funny enough, I was there this past weekend. I actually went in probably in one of the buildings where our favorite person was in, and I thought about it, like,
apparently she was in. You remember when we went to the Whole Foods with Frank Analysis? She was in there. Apparently, like, not too long after we were there that same exact day.
Yeah.
On her live stream when she talked about it with when she was talking about AOC, we're referring to AOC, when she was talking about the January 6th events and she was talking about how like in the lead up to January 6th, she was like feeling something odd in the air. And she talked about after the or before, during, after sometime the speakership election, she went to the Whole Foods that day. And that was the same exact day we were out. We went to the Whole Foods. I was like, what if we had like seen her in there? That would have been something.
I mean, I've said this to you many times, Jackson, but I'm like, and no offense to the person who told us to do otherwise, but
Hindsight.
Hindsight, you know. So
Yeah.
but we did what we can.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
are we getting a good march? Are we getting great marches out of it too? So
Yeah.
And a lot of them,
that's a positive there.
a lot of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're getting a lot of the Medicare for All marches. The website M4 all.org. Okay.
M4all.org.
M4 all.org.
Gotcha.
So Mike 4 Oscar
And then,
Romeo Golf. Yes,
There
I
we
know
go.
the
It's in
international.
the chat.
There it is, right there. Perfect. Thank you, Jackson.
Got you.
Yo, you are the original Axon Jackson, brother. Carl Weathers has got nothing on you. Carl Weathers has got nothing on you, brother. You're the original Axon Jackson. Yeah, but he was tough in Rocky 2, man. He was tough in Rocky 2. Don't sleep on Rocky. Rocky
I just
4.
watched Rocky. I watched the first Rocky like 2 nights ago again. I love that movie.
Oh man, which just to turn the volume down a little bit. Which one was your favorite Rocky movie, guys?
I gotta go OG.
The number one?
Yeah.
What? Oh, come on, Collin. What's yours, bro?
I think 3.
3?
Yeah.
3 with Clubber Lang, Mr. T.
Yeah.
Clubber Lang. That wasn't bad. I'm a Rocky 4 guy. 4 was it. Too many great lines in that movie too. If he dies, he dies.
my Twitter background.
There it is. Drago.
Yeah.
Drago.
I must break.
Drago. I must break. And you know what's crazy? In real life, of the, I guess, let me think, 6 opponents that Rocky had, the one guy you wouldn't want to mess with in real life is actually Dolph Lundgren. That's the guy you don't want. Oh, he has multiple black belts. He, at one point, was Grace Jones's bodyguard.
Wow.
Yes, he was Grace Jones's bodyguard, and rumor has it that he was backstage. That he was obviously, and he was dating Grace Jones at one point. And then Sylvester Stallone was supposedly backstage at a Grace Jones concert. He sees this tall Swedish guy, 6'5", full of muscle, multiple disciplines of black belts. It's like, hey, you want to be on a movie? And supposedly Homeboy was like, yeah. And Dolph's got like a master's degree in he's like a 160 or 170 IQ.
Someone just said, Sand Queen just said Dolph has an IQ of like 160 or something.
He's a smart guy, right? Like Mr. T was all right. He was tough, the gold chains. Hogan was Hogan. Rocky was Rocky. And Rocky 5, it was Tommy Morrison, who's a former professional boxer. Rocky 6, the guy he was fighting was a guy named Mason the Line Dixon. But in real life, that was former cruiserweight champion Antonio Tarver. And Antonio Tarver was a really good fighter. He's the first guy to knock out Roy Jones. And go ahead and that happened about 20 years ago. But in real life, the guy you didn't want to mess with was Dolph Lundgren. He would kick your ass, then do calculus on your forehead in the process because he had like some science degree or some shit.
Hey, listen. I just started getting in the gym, the boxing gym. I'm giving my go. We're trying it out. Trying it out.
Just remember, hands up, hands off. You throw the jab, you circle to the left.
I had this guy. So the first coach I went to was this guy.
Yeah.
He was like, I want to say he was like some Ukrainian boxer or something like that. Like somewhere in Europe. I couldn't tell you where he's from. I could barely understand what he was saying, but we were doing, when they say like, they give you the numbers, like 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, whatever, like they give you the numbers for what you're supposed to say. I couldn't understand what he was saying the whole time. I was like, I don't even know what you're saying, but he was a beast. He was a beast. Where was I going with this? I was going to say something. Now I lost my train of thought, but like, I don't know. I like boxing. It's a good time. It's a good time. We got the Logan Paul Mayweather fight on the 6th.
Mayweather is going to destroy Logan Paul, and I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see it.
No. I mean, yeah, for sure. But like, also, I do think it's important. I'm not trying to say like Logan's gonna win, or I'm not that psychotic. But like, I do want to say like, Mayweather has fought guys his height, his weight, his entire life.
Yep.
He's never. I don't think he's ever gotten hit hard by someone of Logan Paul's stature before.
Yeah, but at the same time, Logan Paul hasn't fought a professional boxer,
And he got beat by a YouTuber.
And he got
beat by a YouTuber.
Yeah, and I don't think people under it. And again, and I used to box when I was much younger, and I love boxing also. And again, Floyd Mayweather is this kind of special case in boxing of this past generation because he's never lost a fight.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, we've seen 2 iterations of Floyd Mayweather. There's a noticeable difference between Pretty Boy Floyd and Money Mayweather.
Yeah.
Pretty Boy Floyd was an animal. You didn't want it with Pretty Boy Floyd. Money Mayweather, he had to be a little more defensive. He had to fight behind the Philly shell, high shoulder, through a lot of right hand leads. It's because he had brittle hands. If Floyd Mayweather didn't have hands that were equivalent to peanut brittle or paper mache, yo, you wouldn't have seen a defensive style Floyd Mayweather. And Floyd Mayweather really fought a lot like his dad. Go ahead and watch YouTube the fight with Floyd Mayweather and Sugar Ray Leonard. Mm-hmm. And see where Floyd Mayweather Jr. gets that defensive style, high front shoulder, gives you half the body to hit, and then he has a right hand. That right hand lead is just ridiculous. So yeah, for all the younger folks in the chat,
Sugar Ray
Leonard's my childhood hero.
My dad was his like showed him around Miami for a night. They had like some business thing with him, and he got to hang out with him for a night.
Yeah,
apparently. Yeah, I mean the stories are crazy, as you can imagine.
Yeah, Roy Leonard's my childhood hero, man. I mean, if there was a mythical match to put Ray Leonard and in his prime Mayweather in the ring, I don't know who's winning that fight, but I'm not betting against Sugar Ray Leonard. I'm just not.
No,
I'm just not. I'm just not. Now Roy Jones is a different whole. Like Roy was just Roy. Roy did shit in the ring you're not supposed to do. And then the reflexes slowed up. Antonio Tarver caught him after he came down and away from beating John Ruiz, and then the wheels kind of fell off with Roy. But yeah. And there's some people in the chat saying who would win between Bruce Lee and Drago. Come on, is this really? Come on, y'all are really asking that question? Really? Bruce Lee was a whole different species of human being. Stop. Drago had muscles and a crew cut. Bruce Lee was on something else. This is just come on. People are asking me what's my favorite Michael Jackson song.
Yeah, I'm wondering.
Good question. Favorite Michael Jackson song, Liberian Girl off the Bad album.
Yes.
Big tune, massive tune. And I'll even go as far as saying this: my favorite Michael Jackson album. It's not bad and it's not through. It's Off the Wall. Off the Wall was legit. Yeah. Off the Wall was the one with Louis Johnson from the Brothers Johnson on bass, and Jackson's like, I had no idea what you guys were talking about. I listened to Kendrick Lamar and Dua Lipa, and I'm waiting for that next Nicki Minaj album.
You gotta bring it forward. People Jackson knows. You gotta bring it forward.
Yeah,
I had like when I was little, like I loved the classic Michael Jacksons, but I never got like too into it. Like you have to understand, like right when I was like old enough to literally start listening to his music was like right when he passed. So
back in 2009. Yeah.
It was I remember I wanted to go and see him on his last tour.
Yes.
And I remember I was like begging my mom. I was like, I want to see him. And then like, I watched that movie, the last movie, so many times too. I watched that over and over and over.
Off the
It was
wall.
so sad. So sad.
Man, it was rough. It was rough. And people in the chat are really going in on the music questions too, man. This is good stuff here. You know, people say
Roddy Ricch just released a Thriller tribute.
Nice.
That'd be good.
Nice. Eric Gray saying Invincible and Dangerous are legit. Yeah, Invincible was tough. That was what, that was in like early, actually mid-90s. Dangerous, I think, came out in 1990. I remember that buying that, or 91. Yeah, I remember buying it in high school because I was in high school in 91. Yeah, and that Remember the Time video. Oh gosh.
I remember, when did the Bad music video came out?
1987. And I've actually
Yeah.
been to where they
That
filmed
makes sense because it was just before I moved when I came to. I did a short stint in Jersey before, when I was living in the UK. But I remember specifically, like that very day.
Yeah.
Like I was hanging out with my close friends and their older brother.
Yeah.
And
Bad
the
thing.
world stopped. The world stopped.
And it's
we stopped what we were doing to make sure
that bad video.
we watched that bad music video.
You had to watch it. And it's at the Hoyt and Schermerhorn train stop in Brooklyn, in New York.
Right.
Hoyt and Schermerhorn. Yeah. And the part where they filmed it, I think it's closed off now. But years ago, I was able to see it. Yeah. And the choreography in that video, Jeffrey Daniel was in it, who was 1/3 of Shalimar, who taught Michael Jackson the moonwalk. Man, look, there's a lot of youngsters in the chat that don't understand how truly famous Michael was back in the day. People think Justin Bieber and Beyonce and Jay. No.
Mike, I will say, I mean, to give credit to Beyonce, like she's kind of this generation's like she's nowhere like I think she may come close. Well, I don't know. She might, in my mind, she may come close. Yeah. Like just as far as like the world stops whenever she puts out something, but
yo, look.
I mean, no one can do it better than Michael Jackson, in my opinion. Nobody can touch him.
I'm gonna date myself, and I'm gonna say this. I'm old enough to remember Motown 25. Okay, when Michael Jackson hit that moonwalk, there were kids in school the next day spraining their ankles and tearing their ACLs trying to do that moonwalk. Beyonce doesn't have that kind of juice. All right. No. And I love Mike, but I'm a Prince guy. I've seen Prince 13 times in concert. Look, there's a Prince tattoo. Look, hey, Joe Jackson, you're not the only one with the guns, brother. I'm getting them legs too, my man. Hitting the burpees hard. But look, but look, people these days don't understand. Mike put out a video and it was on normal TV. No. It wasn't even on MTV or VH1. Mike shut it down.
Yeah, his first.
There's no.
Well, he was the first Black artist to be on MTV with Billie Jean.
Yes, and let me tell you, one of the biggest injustices of my lifetime. Look, I wrote down for Christmas one year that I wanted the Billie Jean floor, and I was like, yo, why can't I have that Billie Jean floor that lights up every time I walk for Christmas? I want that. I want to walk down the steps and have the steps light up. That would be. I want look. Whenever.
Yeah, I was about to ask Jackson, do you even know that? Because I just want to make sure you're coming in.
I did. I mean, like that was like what was on YouTube when I was younger. It was just like music videos, right? Yeah. That's like what watching like old music videos. Oh, man. That's what I love to do. Yo, I had like a YouTube channel dedicated to like re-uploading like my favorite music videos and shit. Like that's what I enjoyed.
I will admit, like you mentioned Prince. I wish I was more. Well, I was a kid when Prince was really popping off, especially in the 80s. Like, I didn't get him. Like, a lot of people as a kid, I did not get the. I get it now.
Yep.
But definitely back then, I just felt it was kind of like you're either like a Michael Jackson person or a Prince person.
Yeah.
And like, I just kind of like associated myself with Michael Jackson. I just thought Prince was way too weird at that time.
I get it.
But like now listening and just the mastery of his
art.
It's art.
It's art.
So it was like definitely appreciate more now as an adult. But like as a kid.
And we got people in the chat just bringing up some interesting stuff here. Roxanne Marquez said Rick James. I've said this before and I will say it again. If Rick James had stayed off the drugs in the 80s, and people talk about the Chappelle Show skit, right? Like, there's a ton of truth in that. Okay, there's a lot of truth in that because Rick got loose.
James,
exactly. But if Rick James had stayed off the drugs, he would have been bigger than Prince and Michael in the 80s. I guarantee you. And there was really only 8 artists in the 80s that truly mattered. You had Prince, Michael, Madonna. Sade, Janet. My God, we can talk about Janet for the next hour. Oh. Jesus Lord. Janet, Phil Collins, and George Michael. People sleep on George Michael, but when he was with Wham, look, that Make It Big album was serious. If you put on Everything She Wants now, the dance floor gets packed. And that Faith album that George Michael had, come on, too many hits. Father Figure, Faith, Come on. I Want Your Sex. Just hit after hit. That whole album was just a bit like, it was like a greatest hits album. And it just had hits. Careless Whisper. Look, that's the quintessential 80s tune with that saxophone.
Yes.
You put that on.
I mean, you can't get music like that now.
You can't get music like that now.
You can't get music like that now.
Look, and I'm telling you right now, if you're hanging out and you got things cooking right now, right? You got, you know, significant other hanging out, enjoying life, right? Look, if you can't close the deal and close the show with Careless Whisper in the background, something's wrong. Something's wrong.
It's going on.
That saxophone does things to people, and I don't know what it is. It changes chemical imbalances. things get.
I mean, I say like I'm a 90s kid as far as music through and through, but I grew up in the 80s. Like that's gonna be like always my like I listen to like 80s or like classic 80s R&B. Like I grew up listening to Luther Vandross. I listened to Anita Baker. I listened to Sade. Like thank God my older brother turned me on, you know, to all of this music. You know, so like
bro, look,
that's all I listen to.
That's the other tattoo. It's a Sade tattoo.
Sade.
And it says cherish the day underneath. Come on now. Sade.
Nigerian queen.
Oh, yes. Nigerian and English. Yes. Helen Sade Abdul. Yes. And supposedly it's such a new album in the works right now. But Luther, man, look, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Luther vocally is the greatest vocalist I've ever heard in my life. Luther, if the galaxy had a singing contest, Luther represents Earth. Seriously.
So would you classify Whitney Houston then?
Whitney Houston is her own genre of music. Whitney was just Whitney. Was just Whitney. And I mean, and those first 2 or 3 Whitney albums were nuts. I have them in my storage unit in Winston-Salem. Whitney, like those first, and the production on those, Kashif produced a lot of that stuff. Narada Michael Walden. It's just amazing music. But then Danny's in the chat saying Skinny Luther or Big Luther. That's an interesting question. Let me tell you, you could start a fight at a cookout with asking that question. Skinny Luther or Big Luther? It kind of depends, because never too much Luther, like early Luther was fun. It was great, especially with Marcus Miller on the bass. But then when Luther got big with Love Power, The Power of Love, it was like, okay, the Jerry curl was extra juicy. Then it was like, all right, you know what? Big Luther's cool too. But I kind of like medium-sized Luther, like So Amazing Luther. Forever for Always for Love Luther was fun. Like, and Never Too Much is one of the 20 greatest songs ever made. It's just, come on, you put that on right now, people are dancing.
If you had to choose between R. Kelly or Usher, who would you pick?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Really?
Wow. Actually, this is actually an easier question than it actually is, because because music alone, R. Kelly's the answer.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure it's close.
Yeah. I would agree, only because he definitely has a certain style.
Yes.
And he wrote for a lot of artists that I listened to in the 90s that made the difference for me. Like, I think he had a bigger, like Aaliyah aside, he wrote for Changing Faces, he wrote for Star, you know, like in the 90s. So like, and those were the cats that I was listening to all through like high school. So I feel for me, like Usher was cool, especially when he came out, but I feel like R. Kelly has the songs that I remember clearly, not just because of him, but like the women, especially that he wrote for, who I really appreciated back then. Yeah.
So real quick, Donnie Posner saying, who was the lead singer of Journey? Steve Perry. Come on now, Steve Perry. And let's not forget, Steve Perry had that album called Straight Talk with that tune, Oh Sherry. What a great video is. And in the intro, he has this line where he says, should have been gone, right? And he says, knowing how I made you feel. For years, I thought Steve Perry was saying cinnamon gum. And then he's like, cinnamon gum. I'm like, no, it should have been gone. I'm like, oh my God, what a revelation. But Steve Perry's one of those guys. He can sing all day long. He's one of those guys in rock music that had a voice. Him, Ronnie James Dio, my gosh. Sammy Hagar. I preferred him as a lead singer to Van Halen over David Lee Roth, even though David Lee Roth was was a better frontman.
That's a controversial statement.
Oh,
I mean, I don't really care. I mean, I don't have much stake in a fucking, Van Halen debate, but controversial.
Danny
Definitely
Flores saying Boys to Men, Bobby Brown, or Belle Biv DeVoe.
Where's that one?
Wait, who is it? Boys to Men.
Bobby Brown, Belle Biv
Brown.
DeVoe.
Mm.
Well, I mean, Belle Biv DeVoe and Bobby Brown were 66% of New Edition, so it kind of needs to be New Edition, Boys to Men.
Man.
Oh Jesus, yo, I don't know. I might have to go New Edition because New Edition was kind of like Voltron. Like New Edition broke up and they were still tough individually. Like Johnny Gill was Johnny, Bobby was Bobby, Ralph was Ralph, and Ronnie, Ricky, and Mike were Belle Biv DeVoe.
Yeah, I feel New Edition they haven't been away for a while, but like if you're at a cookout and a song played, like Cool It Now.
Come on.
Like people will get up and dance.
Yo,
now. I mean, Boys and Men, they were good, but I don't think they carried that same weight as New Edition does now.
No, because Boys to Men, you didn't see Boys to Men grow up, which is kind of ironic given their name, Boys to Men. They were kind of already men when they were out, but you saw Bobby, Ronnie, Ricky, Mike, and Ralph as a bunch of 13 and 14-year-old kids from the Roxbury Projects in Boston, Massachusetts. And I will say this, Maurice Starr, who was their former manager, he ended up creating New Kids on the Block.
Oh no! We got a loaded question here.
This is a big
bomb goes off in the chat.
Biggie or Tupac?
Or Pac? Look, I have to.
I gotta go Biggie. And I love Pac.
We're talking just the music.
Yeah, I know. And I know what Pac represented. He went. Yeah. I used to live a block away from where he went to high school at the Baltimore School for the Arts. I used to live 1 block away from there.
Really?
Jada Pinkett was his high school classmate.
Really?
Jada Pinkett's from Baltimore.
Wait, no, I knew that actually. I knew that.
Yeah. But Tupac went to the Baltimore School for the Arts, corner of Reed Street and Madison Street. Reed and Madison.
I'm so shocked all the Tupac love in chat.
Yeah, I mean, Tupac. I get what Tupac represents, and I love him, but I think definitely within that time frame, like who I think especially in the 90s, like who I would have listened to more, Biggie. East Coast, grew up in Jersey, so obviously that connection there. And I feel like for me, like I heard more Biggie than Pac. So
I mean, when you think about Juicy, that's the ultimate rags to riches tune. It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine, Salt and Pepper and Heavy D in the limousine, hanging pictures on my wall. Every Saturday, rap attack Mr. Magic Marley Marl. I'm like, okay, this is speaking exactly to me because I used to buy Word Up magazine, right? And in the middle of it, you take the middle of it out and you put the picture on the
poster
wall.
Up.
You put the poster on the wall. It was right, and I used to listen to Rap Attack on Saturday mornings. And you tape it, and Marley Marl was the host. I used to listen.
I still remember when Big Papa music video came out, and I was so mesmerized by it. I think Biggie overall.
Yes,
Biggie flow, Pac, everything else. Yeah.
Something I didn't know till like a few months ago. I don't know if everyone in chat knows this, but Pac was a member of the New York Young Communists League.
Yes.
I was not aware of that.
And his mother was a former Black Panther. His mother was a Black Panther.
Yeah.
His mother was a Black Panther. Yep. So when you hear him talking about all this political stuff, that's where he gets it from.
If you guys haven't listened to him talk about political stuff, you should. Everyone in chat, like I'm sure most people have. Those clips are pretty viral, but he was definitely lays it down.
Yeah, he was definitely way ahead of his time before I even was. Just as far as politics. But man,
Aiden Daniels saying Easy-E or Ice Cube. Oh, come on, that's easy. Cube. Cube.
Wait, Collin,
did
you say
I said Easy-E.
You're saying Easy-E? What?
Yeah.
Okay. I gotta go Cube. Cube did more with his career musically.
Yeah.
I mean, the kids' movies are fine. But that America's Most Wanted album, that debut album that Cube had right after he left NWA, that was serious, bro. That was what, 1988 or 89 when that America's Most Wanted came out? Then I think Death Certificate came out after that. Those first couple of Cube albums after he left NWA were rugged, brother. They were rugged. Bless you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're
Mona
welcome.
says easy.
Mona. Okay, Mona. All right.
Well, she's from East Coast. She's West Coast. Sorry. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
Love you, Mona.
Yeah. But this chat's live. I mean, we're not even talking. We're just talking about whatever people are talking about in the chat, and we're still cooking. I mean, this is awesome. Tupac and Kanye. The Fugees are Lauryn Hill. Well, the
Lauryn
Fugees
Hill.
is Lauryn Hill.
No.
I mean, Lauryn Hill was the lead
She
singer.
made the Fugees.
She made the Fugees. Yeah. I mean, come on now.
Like, have you guys
Greatest rapper of all time.
Nas.
I got to see Nas in LA once, free concert. It was
Nas.
incredible.
Nas. I want everybody in the chat to pay attention to what I'm going to say next, because this is definitely going to get some people
Wait,
talking.
I heard Colin's thoughts. Yeah.
Oh,
I have to think about it.
It's not an easy question. It's not.
It's not.
Question.
Yeah,
Nas.
I have to think about it.
Nas. I mean, not only is Illmatic the greatest hip hop album ever, all right, it's not only the greatest debut album, it's also the greatest debut album from any artist in any genre of music. Again, there's been wonderful debut albums everywhere. Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction, the first Sade album. With any debut album, it's not better than Nas Illmatic. It's just not.
I probably would say Nas too, but I'm not sure. Well, yeah. I mean,
Rakim was tough. Big Daddy Kane. People forget about Big Daddy Kane. Kane was ridiculous.
Yeah.
What? The first album, R.A.W., Ready and Willing. Come on, Kane was no joke. Kane was tough, but Nas was just different, man. Nas. It ain't hard to tell. I excel and prevail. The mic is contracted. I attract clientele. My mic check is life or death. Breathing the sniper's breath. I exhale the yellow smoke of Buddha through righteous steps. Come on, man. Nas was different, man. Nas had a whole other level. Now, Bryson Horsley saying LL Cool J. Look, LL Cool J was tough. Those first 4 Cool J albums were nuts. Bigger and Deffer, Walking with a Panther, I Can't Live Without My Radio. And then in 1990, he dropped Mama Said Knock You Out. Mama Said Knock You Out. Look, Jackson, you need to put that on when you're in the gym, when you're hitting that heavy bag. Put on Mama Said Knock You Out, brother. You'll have that left hook in no time. Bow! Be punching.
You know what I think? I'm trying to fathom what's happening right now, because like I said, greatest rapper, not a single person said Kanye, and like in my generation, I know you're shaking, but like in my generation, there's such a good portion of people that would I mean, I've been in the conversations that definitely say that. I think what's happened is this conversation started off. I love Tribe. This conversation started off with like Michael, and then we slowly got into more like niche 80s musicians, and I think what happened was the younger people in the audience maybe left the stream because they're like, I don't know these niche 80 artists. And then now when the conversation comes up about greatest rapper of all time, the young people who grew up on Kanye are not even in the conversation. I think that's what happened, because I haven't seen
I am not
single Kanye
as young as I look, guys. Like, keep that in mind. So, and neither is Joe. So, so
Kanye's still putting out good music, and it's like I'm 21. I'm still in like the prime of my youth, I'd say. Jared, you're not invisible. I see you. You're not shadow banned. We see you. We love you.
Man. After radical leftist agenda, any Mob Deep, the Infamous was so serious. Shook Ones. Oh my God! Come on, man. There's a war going on outside. No man is safe.
I love this chat. You guys are really like, you're making me all nostalgic, man.
Shook Ones was such a tune.
Like,
man.
It just makes me realize how good hip hop was in the 80s and 90s. It just made me realize that, because it actually like had a message for the most. There was some slimy rap, obviously, but like, but I felt for the most part, I think especially in the 80s, early 90s, you know, there was like, it had a lot more substance, whereas now it's just like,
there it is. First Tribe album. Peaked
Yeah.
travels in the passive rhythm. I left my wallet in El Segundo.
So
Gotta
good.
get it. I got to get it. What? But seriously, as great as that album was, another great debut album. Low End Theory was it, bro. Low End Theory, that Midnight Marauders right after that, man, Tribe was so gully. Oh
Yeah.
gosh, it was so gully. Bryson Horsley, overrated or underrated? Will Smith, hell of a question. Hell of a question.
Underrated.
Underrated. Yes.
Underrated.
Those Fresh Prince albums
Underrated.
back in 1987 were tough.
I can
Underrated.
listen to Will Smith at any point in my day. Like I could be waking up, taking a piss, first piss of the morning, and just turn on some Will Smith, and it's like, this is how I'm going to start my day. This is how I'm going to start my day. You could be like about ready to go out. You could be about ready to go out, you know, wherever, and it's like that's the perfect like pump up jam to go out to a club. It's like Will Smith any time of the day. It's a good time.
Oh man!
Look, Memorial Day weekend. Well, I didn't do it this past weekend, but like I get Summertime in my mind like, every year without fail. Generally, summertime, like you know. So
done.
Yeah.
One of the great summer song tunes ever. Phenomenal Mysticism saying Outkast is very good. Outkast is a little bit better than very good.
Oh,
God. Better than very good. Come on. Everything they ever did.
That's another one. Got to see Outkast front row. That's one.
I saw Outkast in concert in college. That was an amazing show.
Damn.
So
that's like,
that's probably like my first real concert, honestly. So
wow,
man. And Aquemini. For me, Aquemini was the album for me. People love Southern Playlist, the Cadillac music. There's a lot of people that are like, yo, ATLings was the thing. For me, it was Aquemini. Aquemini was just another, like the way Dre just put his lyrics together on that album. It was a work of art. It was a work of art. And then Stankonia came out after that with Bombs Over Baghdad and Miss Jackson. Sorry, Miss Jackson. Ooh, I am for real. Yeah. Big. Oh man.
I mentioned Queen Latifah. UNITY. That
that sax solo. And then and let's not forget, MC Light was no joke back in 1988. Oh my God. Yo, Latifah was tough, but for me, MC Light was it. MC
got the
Light.
Jersey cred, New Jersey cred. So
yeah. I think one of her brothers was one of the members of Audio 2, who had that song Milk. Milk is chilling. This is chilling. What more can I say? I think one of them was MC Light's older brother or a cousin or something. But yeah. Oh my God.
Oh, we got another one. Mary J. or Erykah Badu.
Oh, yo, are you serious?
That's dangerous.
We're asking that question now?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Erykah.
Mary J. I will listen to if I'm going through some shit. If you're going through some shit, you turn on Mary J. Yeah. If you just want something to chill to maybe do a little something to, if you want to be something a little suspicious to, you know.
Whoa. We need a little more clarification on that, Collin. What you mean being suspicious? Inquiring minds want to know, sir.
I'm not talking about me necessarily. Not talking about me necessarily. But I think for me personally, Erykah does more for me. Funny enough, like I listened to Baduism like on a lot when I was in like for some reason, like I was just she got me through when I was living in Uganda. I played Baduism like basically until I basically can't play it on my computer anymore. So yeah. So for me, it was just like, yeah, I think for me, Erykah Badu.
For me, it's Mary. Because of what you just said. You said you listen to Mary if you've been through some shit. I've been married and divorced.
Yeah.
So I've been through some shit.
I guess I haven't been through enough shit.
You haven't been through enough shit. You haven't been through enough shit. So Eric Gray saying
Cisco.
thoughts on Cisco. He's Baltimore, baby. That's Baltimore. Drew Hill's
You
Baltimore.
know what? You know what? I saw
Yeah.
a documentary recently about Cisco in connection to the Fong song.
Oh, so did I.
Like
Hilarious.
that, like how they broke it down and how like what Cisco had to do in or like
Yeah.
he
It's a genius.
like I had to give him props for that, you know, just in the like because I think like that beat was originally for Michael Jackson,
It
I
was
guess
for Michael
initially.
Yes.
And like, but somehow Cisco heard it and he was like, I gotta have it.
I want
So they
it.
ended up giving him that beat. And then what Cisco had to do to kind of lay that to what we hear now was like, never knew that. But like,
Yeah.
but I think just for that, I'm like, okay, you got some props from me. You basically took a beat from Michael Jackson. So
Cisco was
and made
tough.
that #1 hit,
Cisco
you
was
know,
tough.
like
Yeah, Thong
in
Son.
college during spring break at that perfect time during spring break. I remember in 2000 that song came out and like during spring break and like
Done deal.
done.
And let me tell you, he made a lot of money for Victoria's Secret because Victoria's Secret wasn't selling thongs back in 2000.
He brought
dropped
Fox
that
back in
song.
style.
What?
He brought Fox back in style.
Put that
So
on, bro. He put that in. He made it happen. Danny asked me,
Ooh.
D'Angelo or Maxwell? D'Angelo. That's the easy answer. D'Angelo. And it's not close.
D'Angelo's an easy answer anytime.
And it's not close. It is not close. D'Angelo by 500 miles.
Oh, this is a good one.
Nina.
Nina.
There was one up earlier. Patti LaBelle versus Gladys Knight. That is an interesting question, but it's
no,
Patti
you can't.
still.
No, you can't do that. You can't
Why?
do that.
Patti.
You can't do that.
Patti.
You can't do that. Bryson, no. Why you got to do us like that, man?
Patti
Like,
LaBelle. It's Patti.
I'll say Patty too, though.
It was Patti. Now, don't get me wrong. Gladys Knight, obviously, they were both part of groups. Patti LaBelle was part of the group called the LaBelles, and that was all Philadelphia stuff, Gamble and Huff Productions. And then when Patti left the group, she became Patti LaBelle. If Only You Knew, one of the great duets of all time, On My Own with Michael McDonald. Oh, classic. Gladys had some hits too.
But then Patty had like she acted too.
Yes.
So I remember I forgot what show she was on in the 90s that I watched. I forgot.
Yeah.
But
And, and I like big hair Patty with 12 ounces of Aquanet hairspray in their hair. Big hair Patty. There was nothing like hairspray Patty. You kidding me? Cut it out. Cut it out.
Earth, Wind, and Fire, or the Isley Bro. Oof.
That's a tough one.
Oof.
Boy, oh boy.
I think for me personally,
let's hear it.
The Isley Brothers. Did a little bit more for me. I mean, I listen to the Isley Brothers more than I do Earth, Wind. I know. I'm gonna take away my black card here. I'm gonna take away my black card. But like.
You still got it.
I just feel like Earth, Wind, and Fire is just
real quick. I'm gonna say this now, Jackson. You get an invite to the cookout, so just know.
All right. I grew up. I actually like this one. I grew up listening to a lot of Isley Brothers. Also Earth, Wind, and Fire. But like my dad played Isley Brothers like nonstop all the time growing up. That was like my shit.
I gotta go Earth, Wind, and Fire. I gotta go Earth, Wind, and Fire.
I love Earth, Wind, and Fire too.
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
I don't like this question. Fuck this question.
Let's hear it. Yeah, it's a tough one. That's a tough one. But let's not forget, the Isley Brothers' first guitarist was a young man who joined the Air Force but then quit, named Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix's first job in music was as a session guitarist for the Isley Brothers. Then Jimi Hendrix became Jimi Hendrix.
Right.
Yeah. So the Isley Brothers, it's out of the pride of Teaneck, New Jersey. Yeah, but Earth, Wind, and Fire for me was it, man. I mean, I actually prefer the Earth, Wind, and Fire stuff with Philip Bailey on the lead vocal as opposed to Maurice White. And Verdine White's one of the greatest guitarists of all time.
I'm so horny to listen to some music right now. I'm like trying to set up my Spotify for
when
this stream's over. I'm
gonna make like you're gonna make me go on Pandora after this and just replay like all this music and I haven't listened to all of this in a minute. So thank you for taking me down memory lane for all of this, man.
That's what everyone who's not on stream's doing. They're like playing some music in the background while we're talking. They got it going right now.
They're digging in. Danny asking Oprah or Gail. Come on. Really? Really? It's Oprah. It's
Oprah.
Oprah. It's Oprah. Real quick, I got an Oprah story. Get ready for this. I got an Oprah story. All right. Now, Oprah got one of her first TV jobs in Baltimore, working at WJZ TV Channel 13. Now, in Baltimore, every July, third weekend of July, there's an outdoor music festival, an arts festival called Artscape. And it used to be sponsored by Channel 13 forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And when I grew up when I first came to America, I used to live in downtown Baltimore, a short walk away from where Artscape was held, right where the University of Baltimore is. And back in the day, you used to meet all of the people from Channel 13, which is back then, I think was the ABC affiliate in Baltimore. So you had all these old school guys like Jerry Turner, Al Saunders, John Buren, and one of them was none other than Oprah Winfrey. So here I am, 6 or 7 years old. I walk up to her and I got my corduroy shorts on, my striped socks, my kangaroo shoes with a quarter in them in the pocket. I walk up to her and I'm nervous as hell, right? Because Oprah used to do the morning show back in the day from 6:30 to 7 in the morning with none other than a guy named Marty Bass. And Marty Bass is still at Channel 13 doing the morning shows in Baltimore. So I walk up to her and I'm nervous as hell. And my mom's like, Joseph, go ahead now, boy. Go ahead, say hi to Miss Oprah, you know. Right? Because my mom's from Trinidad, right? So I'm like, yo, it's Oprah. And I'm like, Miss Winfrey, I watch you every morning when my daddy and my mommy have to go to work, right? And Oprah, I shit you not, she has these glossy pictures because everybody in back in the day had 8x10 glossy pictures. She had a big stack, like a phone book stack of them, right? She signs one for me and she pinches me on the cheek and says, "You are such a handsome young man." And I was like, oh my God. Oprah called me a handsome young man. Here I am, 7 years old. I'm 7 years old. I got the Arnold Jackson from Different Strokes shape up, which actually wasn't even a shape up at all. I got this rugby shirt, the Bugle Boy corduroy shorts. Man, you couldn't tell me anything. And I had Big League Chew gum in the back pocket. Great flavor. Blowing bubbles as big as this ring light that it's in front of me on the other side of this laptop. You couldn't tell me shit back in 1983, bro. I was legit. We're going too far, but what the hell? We can do it. We're live. We're live. Barry Manilow or Engelbert Humperdinck? Barry Manilow. Come on, man. Barry Manilow. Barry was the guy. Man, we look at all these. Bad Brains. Bad Brains was the pride of DC. Love Bad Brains. Redman, Method Man, or Ghostface Killer? That's a tough one. I got to go Tony Starks. Ghostface. Ghost. Without Ghostface, there's no Action Bronson.
Damn. That's crazy to think about.
Let's really dig in. And I love Action. I actually saw Action Bronson at a concert in Perth, Western Australia when I was on tour out there.
Really?
It was wild. And then I knew the guy who was working security, so we ended up going backstage. And, I'm not gonna. It was a good time. Let's just leave it at that. It was a good time.
I can only imagine.
Oh, cheese and bread, brother. Cheese and rice.
All right. Wait. This is the last one. This is a good one.
Let's see. Yeah. Marvin
Gaye or Curtis Mayfield?
Marvin.
Yeah.
Marvin.
Yeah.
Marvin.
A good one to finish on.
Marvin. I mean, the work that Marvin did in the 70s will never be duplicated. The closest
thing this is the last one.
Michael or Janet?
My God. Here's my answer. And this might be blasphemous, but I'm gonna break it down in about 30 seconds or less. I'm going Janet. Janet. And here's why I'm going Janet. I'm going Janet because Janet's prime lasted longer than Michael's prime.
Yeah.
Janet from 1986 to 2001 had better music
prior to Nipplegate.
Prior to Nipplegate.
Prior to that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, Michael, now the early Mike, like Off the Wall, Thriller Mike, it was tough because he had Quincy Jones producing his stuff. Janet Jackson with Control, Velvet Rope, the All For You album, Oh,
She had the same she had the same producers
it was
all the
Jimmy-
way through.
It was Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis.
Terry Lewis.
It was Jimmy Jam and
all the
Terry
way
Lewis.
through. And they returned for, I think, one of her more recent albums too.
Yes, it was on
So-
the Demita Joe album.
Yeah.
Yes, it was
So
Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. They made like Control, that whole album. Come on, what are you talking about?
yeah, I will have to say,
It's a bold take.
yeah, I agree. Like, I love Michael, but I think especially growing up as a teen, you know, like during the prime of Janet, like I was into Janet a lot more.
Janet,
Like, although I will say I'm mad at Janet because I was supposed to, my pipe dream is to see her in concert. I would have saw her in concert, but she decided to have a baby. And then by the time she came back, I was moved here. I'm like, this was when I was living in Boston. I'm like, sorry, I'm not going to go up to Boston, even though I would have wanted to, but you decided to take off to have a baby. So now,
By the way,
so
by the way,
Janet, we and I in a good space right now.
and I got to remember, Rhythm Nation, we are a part of a rhythm. Oh, come on, too crazy. Look, let me tell you, when Janet Jackson put that key in her earrings, she had every woman in America putting their keys on their ears as their earrings instead of in their pockets or purses.
The Janet album was my favorite.
Oh,
bar none.
Me, I was a Rhythm Nation guy. I love Rhythm Nation though. But Janet, man, and here's the other thing. Janet, we saw Janet kind of grow up. Janet was on Good Times. Then she was Charlene. She was Arnold Jackson's girlfriend on Different Strokes. And you had to know that was a fake TV show because there's no way Arnold's getting a woman looking like Charlene. That's never happening in real life. So you knew it was fake TV. Then she was Cleo Hewitt on the show Fame. Then she became Miss Jackson, If You're Nasty. And then my biggest heartbreak of Janet was not taking her to my senior prom because that was my dream in life. I wanted Janet Jackson. I wanted Janet to take me to my prom. Look, I got lofty fellas.
When I was probably a senior in high school, my friends went and saw her at her Velvet Rope tour and did not take me. And I was pissed as hell.
Would be.
I was pissed as hell. Her show in New York that wasn't HBO. They went to that. And I'm like, Janet, you bastards. So
Janet's kind of like LeBron James, where Janet's not the greatest, but Janet's prime, like LeBron's not the greatest. LeBron's not the GOAT. But Janet's prime is a longer prime than Michael's prime, right? And I know I'm punching Jackson in the gut with this, but LeBron has an amazingly long prime. His prime was longer than everybody else's prime, but he's not the great. He's not the GOAT.
No.
And just like Janet's not the GOAT, but her prime was ridiculous.
Dude, I can't even right now with LeBron. The thing is, it's like he I don't know. I'm so frustrated. Honestly, I'm not the biggest LeBron guy in the world. Like, kind of fuck LeBron. I'm gonna say it. Fuck LeBron. At this point, fuck LeBron.
Yeah.
He walked out, left his team on the floor with 7 minutes. Kobe never would have done that.
Kobe would have done
that. Michael never would have done that.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna say he's a diva. So
he's a fucking diva. He comes out with his fucking Malcolm X book, flexing like he's reading Malcolm. Hasn't even read the fucking book. Like, homie, he's just, honestly like he's very performative. He's very, he's like he fits a certain role. He's great, but like, fuck you. Like, you're not loyal. You're not loyal.
I mean,
Kobe's loyal.
There's a reason. There's a reason why Kobe. Whoa! See, look, basketball gods are getting after you.
No, that's because I was showing you my
spirit getting you, Jackson. That's Kobe's spirit.
Kobe's like, cool it. We know, but you don't have to be an ass to LeBron.
And
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the greatest baller.
I agree with that. Won three high school championships at Power Memorial High School in New York City. won 3 national college basketball championships, lost, I think, 1 college basketball game or 2 college basketball games in his career. All-time leading scorer, 6 NBA championships, 6 MVPs. Kareem.
No.
The skyhook with either hand? Come on.
Nah.
Look. Plus, he was in that movie Marked for Death with Bruce Lee. And he let that big-ass footprint on Bruce Lee's chest when he kicked him in the chest. What? Pow! Bang! Big-ass footprint. Footprint was 3 feet long. Man, come on, man.
Kobe, Michael, Kareem. I made a top 10 list once.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to list them in order, but you got to throw Bill Russell in there.
Of course.
You got to throw Magic in there.
Yes. Larry Bird's there.
Larry Bird.
Larry Bird's there. And I'll put him there also, even though he jumped around to a bunch of teams, but his prime was unstoppable. He was a force of nature. Shaq. Like three-peat Shaq.
Yeah.
One of the biggest injustices of sports is not getting three-peat Shaq for about 11 or 12 years.
Wilt Chamberlain
Wilt's
sure
there.
is in there.
Wilt's there. And
you got Jerry West, maybe.
I'll take Steph Curry over Jerry West. Steph is nuts. There's never going to be another. Why don't you like Steph?
I don't like Steph. I don't like watching Steph.
Oh gosh. Oh,
I've really been enjoying watching Damian Lillard play recently.
Yeah, Dame's no joke. Dame's no joke. Out of Weber State University in good old Ogden, Utah. And the only reason I know that is because my sister-in-law lived there and went to school there.
Danny's throwing in like a bunch of top 20s here. Tim, not top 10 for me.
Definitely top 10. And a Wake Forest graduate like me. Gotta that my demon.
Baylor, top 20. Oscar Robinson, top 20. All right. I'm so tired. Fuck. I need to make food. I need to play music. And then who knows what's gonna happen tonight. I'll be wearing this shirt though. That's one thing for sure.
Hey, wear that shirt. Text us in the morning and let me know how it goes.
I will. Hey,
and we need a burrito report, man. What's going on with the burritos recently? We haven't had a burrito report recently from you, bro. What's going on, man?
We going hard for this summer. No burritos. I haven't had a burrito in months.
Okay, stand off the
carbs. I haven't had a burrito in months.
We
go into intermittent fasting, all healthy foods. I'm literally just like fucking eating eggs, protein shakes, veggie bowls. That's what I've been doing.
Nice.
And then gym like once a day, 5-mile beach run every day.
Jesus Christ, man. You're training like Rocky, man. 5-mile beach runs.
Yeah. Basketball, if we can fit it in.
He's ready for White Boy Summer. He's ready.
Hey, I didn't want to be the one to have to say it.
Damn it.
Thank you, Collin. I didn't want to be the one to say it.
Damn it.
This stream was almost great.
Jackson, you worked hard for it, so show it off.
I'll own it. JC's got it. Socialist Boy Summer.
Socialist, well, whatever you want to call it. Whatever you want to call it.
Hey, it is what it is.
You worked hard for it. You got to show it off. So props to you, bro.
Honestly, it's become like an addiction at this point, though. Like just going to the gym has become. I've never had that where it's like it's part of the life now.
No, I will say, like, because I do Orange Fury, now 4 days a week, but that was kind of the saving grace for me as far as the pandemic, because if it wasn't for me going to the gym, I wouldn't leave the damn house.
You did go hard with that shit. I remember like I'd call you and you'd always be on that shit.
Yeah, I mean, but like it's fun. It's manageable for me given the time because it's like either 45 minutes to an hour and I'm done. But like so it kind of fits my schedule. But yeah, like I said, especially during the pandemic, it just made me realize how much I actually, God forbid, like I actually don't mind working out.
Yeah.
But like I said, it just was a way for me to get out of the damn house. Otherwise, I was at the computer all day, and I feel like shit.
It's definitely part of it. It's definitely part of it.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you guys for the conversation. I had a lot of fun.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Me too.
I feel like we're about to stop at like an hour 50 or hour 45, and now we're at like 3. That shit
3 hours.
flies by. I don't know.
Well,
how
we
to
had a
do that.
DJ, so there's no way we cannot go into music in some type. And then, as I said, thank you to the chat. You guys are bringing up people again. Like as soon as I log off, I'm going to listen to somebody that you mentioned. Shoot, I probably might listen to Erica Badu right now, just right off the gate. But like, you brought me down memory lane for
that might be the move. Yeah.
I'm making a salad when I'm done here, for real, because I'm
That
a
sounds
hungry
nice.
brother. I'm a hungry brother, and I got veggies in the kitchen. But yeah, Jackson, thanks for having us on, brother. We appreciate you, and we'll cross paths again. We'll chop it up sometime. I might be coming out to California, maybe a show in Los Angeles, and if there's a show in Los Angeles, you're on the guest list, and we'll do what we do. We'll get it in. We'll get it in. And Collin, I'm coming up to DC, so we're getting some Nando's when I come up to DC. All right.
Yeah.
Macho peas and everything. Trust me.
Got it.
You already know.
Got it.
You already know.
We
But
got
yeah,
it.
man. Yeah, but after the chat room, a lot of people in the chat, after Just JC as the Gamer for Life, after everybody that participated and hung out and chopped it up, sliced the dice and dissected and absorbed. Good to have everybody here. Yeah, follow me, Joe Nice DJ everywhere. Joe Shirts, JoeNiceDJ.net.
Yes.
Shop Joe Nice DJ on Instagram, Joe Nice DJ on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, SoundCloud, Mixcloud. I'm here.
Yeah.
We got it all linked, and Collin as well.
You guys see me in the chat pretty much all the time. So, but yeah, definitely subscribe to my channel.
Yes.
I know it's linked, but yeah, definitely just trying to get to at least 100 subs so I can change the freaking, URL, but like, thank you guys already for your support. Really have appreciated it.
Yes.
So definitely getting excited. And hopefully I'll have my first 1 or 2 videos up by July. So once after school ends, then I have a little bit of a mental break. I can focus on that and start working the good fight.
Excellent. And one other thing, Medicare for all. Again, healthcare is a human right. Sign up if you want to get yourself involved, if you want to volunteer, if you want to host a march. m4all.org. Sign up. Healthcare is a human right. We need Medicare for all in this country. People don't have healthcare, and we got to get it one way or another. And we're going to fight for it.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, we got all that linked below.
Yes, sir.
Go follow, subscribe, do all that shit. Check out the website. Thank you all for tuning in to another live stream. I had a lot of fun with this one. I hope you all did as well. Chat was awesome. Enjoyed the conversation, and I'm honestly I'm ready for some music and some food at this point. I'm ready. I'm ready for it. So we'll catch you all later.
Yes.
Tomorrow is Saturday.
June 5th.
June 5th. I'll probably be live. So I'll probably see you guys tomorrow. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. As always, fuck Dick Cheney, and I will see you all next time. Peace out, everybody. Have a great rest of the night.
Peace.